Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga. Chapter 146. You want to check my Xueqi bag? It's not that easy. How about this? If there is, I'll let you do whatever you want. But if there isn't, I don't need you to apologize to me. Just give me 10 portions of herbs for the red glaze elixir. Qin Feiyong said calmly. But it seemed that his words were blunt and empty. Elder Wan and the others' faces twitched. This little bastard really knew how to take advantage of the situation. Elder He's eyes darkened slightly. He scrutinized Qin Feiyong for a moment and found that Qin Feiyong seemed to be a little guilty. He immediately judged that this boy must be pretending to be calm. He sneered and said, "Today, I'm going to check your Xueqi bag. If there really isn't anything, I'll send someone to give you 10 portions of herbs for the red glaze elixir." Are you sure? Qin Feiyong frowned. His guilty conscience was more obvious, and he was even a little flustered. I'm sure. Elder He enunciated each word clearly and firmly. Qin Feiyong looked at Elder Wan and Elder Wan. He cupped his hands and said, "Seniors, I hope you can be my witness." Gladly. Elder Wan nodded. In fact, they also wanted to know if this little bastard was the one who planned to rob the Danwang Hall's herb fields. Qin Feiyong smiled. Without hesitation, he took out Chong Shui from his Xueqi bag and threw it to Elder He. Elder He caught the Xueqi bag and checked it briefly. He took out a piece of paper and frowned. Who gave you the recipe for the red glaze elixir? Qin Feiyong said calmly. I refuse to answer questions that have nothing to do with herbs. Elder He's eyes flashed coldly as he continued to check. Not long after. He then took out another Cosmos sack from his Cosmos sack. This Xueqi bag was given to Qin Feiyong by Lin Han. Elder He said in a low voice, there are at least 4 to 5 million gold coins in there. You're just a martial master. How could you have so much wealth? Elder Jing said, is there even a need to say it? He must have stolen our medicinal herbs and sold them off. Shizheng sneered. What a bunch of nonsense. These gold coins were given to Zhang Haotian by Lin Han. I was there at the time and saw it with my own eyes. Lin Han actually gave him so many gold coins? Elder Wan and the beautiful woman looked at each other in disbelief. Alas! Fatso and Lu Hong have only been in the Martial Imperial Palace for about an hour. Even if we stole the medicinal herbs, we wouldn't be able to sell them in such a short time. You can't even figure this out? I'm really worried about your IQ. Qin Feiyong sighed deeply and looked at Elder He and Elder He with disdain. Elder He said, don't be arrogant too early. Very soon. He also found many medicinal herbs in the Xueqi bag. He sneered and said, there are at least several 100,000 medicinal herbs in here. How do you explain that? Actually, a portion of these medicinal herbs were obtained by Qin Feiyong when he looted the Black Bear City's City Lord's mansion's treasury. The other portion was the 10,000 healing pills and 10,000 bone replenishing pills that he had bought from the treasure pavilion in the afternoon. And obviously, Elder He thought that these medicinal herbs were looted from the medicinal field. Jia He and Elder Jing could not help but sneer, thinking that they had found something to use against him. However, Qin Feiyong was not nervous at all. He waved his hand and said, come, bring out all those medicinal herbs. Let's see what other tricks you can play. Elder He sneered, took a few steps back, and poured out a large pile of medicinal herbs. They were piled up together like a small mountain, glowing with colorful light and emitting a fragrance. Qin Feiyong walked forward, grabbed a stalk of medicinal herb, and said indifferently, all of you, open your eyes wide and look carefully at the soil of their roots. Does it look like it was just picked from the medicinal field? His words woke the dreamer up. Elder He immediately realized that he had made the lowest level of mistake. Medicinal herbs absorb the essence of heaven and earth to grow. Whether it was cultivated in the soil or stored in the Xueqi bag, it basically would not wither or rot. In other words, this pile of medicinal herbs looked no different from when they were just pulled out from the medicinal field. But there was one place that could easily be judged when they were pulled out. That was the soil on the roots. The soil of medicinal herbs that had just been pulled out of the soil must be fresh. But the soil on the roots of this pile of medicinal herbs was almost completely fallen off, without the slightest bit of moisture. It was enough to see that these medicinal herbs had been pulled out of the soil for a long time, and the medicinal field of the Danwang Hall was only looted more than 2 hours ago. Obviously, these were not medicinal herbs from the medicinal field. Moreover, The soil could not have been dried by the alchemy fire, because medicinal herbs would wither once they encountered the alchemy fire. At this moment, the faces of Elder He and the other two were extremely ugly. This was basic knowledge. Even an idiot would be able to think of it, but they had completely ignored it. It was simply too embarrassing. Qin Feiyong said lightly, "How is it? Now you still dare to say that these medicinal herbs are yours?" The beautiful woman laughed and said, "This is probably the most ridiculous thing in the world." The three of them had never been as embarrassed as they were now. Their old faces were boiling red, and they could not wait to find a hole to hide in. Qin Feiyong said, "Are you done with the inspection?" Elder He's face was gloomy. He carefully inspected it again, and with a belly full of unwillingness, he threw the Chenkuan bag to Qin Feiyong. If it weren't for Elder Wan and the beautiful woman beside them, they would have killed them on the spot. Fatso and Jia He were a little scared, and they hid behind Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong was the only person they could rely on in Yen City. Qin Feiyong felt bitter. Elder He and the other two would definitely misunderstand and think that he was the one who instigated Fatso and Jia He to leave the Danwang Hall. Cough. He coughed dryly and smiled. "Seniors, although we haven't found the culprit who robbed the herb field, the misunderstanding between us has been resolved. Why don't you stay and eat bear paws to celebrate?" Elder Jing spat out another mouthful of blood. Ouch! Qin Feiyong's expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "Why are you spitting blood? Come, quickly eat a bear paw to replenish your strength. After all, you worked hard to get this." Jiang, Hao, Tian. Elder Jing said each word slowly, and he was about to lose control of his temper. "Let's go." Elder He glanced coldly at Qin Feiyong and the other two, and with a heart full of anger, he turned into a stream of light and flew away. Jia He carried Elder Jing and followed closely behind. "Elder He, remember to send the herbs for the 10 sets of red fire-colored glass pellets as soon as possible," Qin Feiyong shouted. Elder He's old body trembled, and he said in a low voice, "Old Jia, when you go back, immediately send someone in disguise to monitor the Martial Imperial Hall. Once they leave the Martial Imperial Hall, find a chance to kill them." "Okay." Jia He nodded, and killing intent flashed in his old eyes. Then, the three of them quickly disappeared into the night sky without saying a word. Phew! Qin Feiyong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, the crisis was resolved. Elder Wan retracted his gaze and frowned. "Tell me honestly, did you rob the herb field of the Danwang Hall?" "We really didn't." Fatso shook his head with an innocent face. Elder Wan looked at the three of them and said with a smile, "As long as you really didn't do it, you can stay in the Martial Imperial Hall." "Thank you, Elder Wan." Lu Hong hurriedly bowed and thanked him. "If the people of the Danwang Hall were as good as you, Elder Wan, we wouldn't have come to this." Fatso shook his head and sighed, and flattered Elder Wan. Elder Wan shook his head and laughed, and warned the two, "This old man won't fall for your tricks. Although you can stay in the Martial Imperial Hall, you can't act recklessly. Otherwise, this old man will drive you out." "Absolutely not." Fatso immediately patted his chest and promised. Seeing the fatty's expression, Lu Hong's heart was filled with anger. She couldn't help but want to go up and slap the fatty. Chapter 147. Qin Feiyong glanced at the solemn Fatso and couldn't help laughing secretly. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He took out a palm-sized iron box from his arms and opened the lid. 15 supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately, Lu Hong's eyes lit up, and she was very eager. Qin Feiyong took out 6 pills and handed them to Elder Wan and the beautiful woman. The two were stunned. Wasn't it 50-50? They should be given 3 pills. But now, how could he give them 6 supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills? "Thank you, seniors, for helping us out just now," Qin Feiyong said gratefully. Although Elder He and the other two had no evidence of them robbing the medicinal field, if Elder Wan and the beautiful woman were not present today, he, Fatso, and Lu Hong would still be finished. Hearing this, Elder Wan and the other two finally understood. The beautiful woman pursed her lips and smiled. "I didn't expect you to know how to repay kindness." Qin Feiyong was helpless. It seemed that he had repaid those who had helped him, right? For example, Zhao Shuang-er and Luo Qingzhu, who had helped him in Black Bear City, he had also given them 2 perfect martial arts. As for Luo Xiong, Feng Cheng, and Elder Mo, there was no chance now. When there was a chance in the future, he would also thank the 3 of them properly. The beautiful woman shook her head and smiled. Okay, don't look wronged. I was just joking. We'll take the pills. You're on your own. Don't provoke the Danwang Hall again. Okay. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 nodded. Putting away the iron box, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Seniors, these 4 bear paws are all fresh. Why don't you leave some to eat?" Elder Wan's face twitched. These days it was really comfortable. The 2 of them were of high status and noble status. Naturally, it was impossible for them to really stay and eat bear paws. After saying a few words to the 3, he flew away. Shi Zhang did not join in the fun and returned to the balcony to continue cultivating. As soon as Shi Zhang left, Qin Feiyang's face sank. He said in a low voice, "The Danwang Hall will definitely not let this matter rest. In the future, it's best if you don't leave the Martial Imperial Hall alone." "Are we going to hide like this forever?" Lu Hong was a little hesitant. Qin Feiyang said, "If you don't want to hide, then work hard to cultivate. When your strength reaches their level, who can do anything to you?" Alas! Lu Hong sighed softly. She sat by the fire and lowered her head in silence. Qin Feiyang glanced at her, then looked at Fatso and said, "I'm warning you now, don't mess around in the Martial Imperial Palace. Otherwise, we won't have a place to stay in Yen City." Fat Lord knows. Fatso nodded and said with some lingering fear, "Just now, old dog, he wanted to check the ancient castle." I'm afraid that Fatso was badly frightened. Chen bags can be hidden everywhere. He won't dare to take the risk. Qin Feiyang sneered. Fatso asked, "Then, do you think he'll really send the 10 sets of red flame-colored glass pellets here?" Qin Feiyang shook his head. As a dignified elder of the Pill Emperor Hall, as well as a combat emperor, it's impossible for him to renege on his debt. He wouldn't be able to afford to lose face like this. After you guys finish eating the bear paw, do me a favor. Lu Hong sighed. I'm not in the mood to eat bear paws. Tell me what favor. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, There are too many things in my Chengkuan bag. I haven't had the time to organize them. Help me count them later. No problem. Also, organize those herbs. Fatso smiled evilly. He grabbed a bear paw and ate it with relish. His mouth was greasy. You can eat so much. No wonder you're so fat. Lu Hong looked at him with disdain and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. She seemed to have something to say, but she didn't know how to say it. Qin Feiyang saw through her thoughts at a glance and said lightly, I will consider giving you the best red flame-colored glass pellet. Thank you. Lu Hong was overjoyed and hurriedly thanked him. Although it wasn't confirmed yet, there was still hope. Qin Feiyang couldn't give it to her now. After all, this woman still didn't know his true identity, let alone her reaction after knowing his true identity. So, he needed to observe carefully. He didn't want to cultivate a future enemy. After eating a few pieces of bear paw meat, Qin Feiyang took the remaining bear paw and led Fatso into the attic and then into the castle. Wolf King had always been thinking about the bear paw. As soon as Qin Feiyang entered the castle, it got up and held it in its mouth, lying on the side and eating with relish. That morning, Elder he asked someone to send 10 sets of red flame-colored glass pellets medicinal materials. Qin Feiyang also immediately refined the elixir. In this way, plus the 9 that he already had, there were a total of 19. Even if he deducted the 5 from the treasure pavilion, there were still 14. At the same time, Fatso and Lu Hong also tidied up their Chengkuan bags. Knowing the result, Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. There were more than 2 million gold coins. All kinds of medicinal materials added together, there were more than 500,000 stocks. Of course, the medicinal materials of the 10,000 sets of healing pills and bone replenishing pills were not included. Otherwise there would be more. As for the weapons, elixirs and so on that were plundered from the treasury under the city lord's mansion, the number was also quite astonishing. Next, Fatso and Lu Hong went outside to cultivate. Qin Feiyang refined 1,000 healing pills, 1,000 bone replenishing pills, and continued to copy the return formula. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Early in the morning, There was a sea of people in front of the gate of the Martial Imperial Hall. The sound of discussion was overwhelming. They naturally came to line up to receive the elixir. In order to line up at the front, some people came yesterday. There were people from all walks of life. The disciples of the Martial Imperial Hall, the disciples of the Lin family, the people of other families, the people of the palace, the waiters of the restaurant and so on. At first, it was very calm. Everyone waited in line. But as the number of people increased, disputes also began. Although due to the rules of Yen City, they did not dare to fight openly, but some dishonest people, relying on their strength, threatened and forced to cut the line. As a last resort, the middle-aged man stationed in the reception hall could only stand up to maintain order. This action puzzled all the tycoons in Swallow City. They did not understand what exactly was Qin Feiyong selling in the gourd. So, the spies of various forces were mixed in the crowd, inquiring about the news. Dozens of meters away, two middle-aged men in tattered clothes, with disheveled hair and dirty faces, stood under a big tree, looking at the gate of the Martial Imperial Hall from afar. Their eyes flashed coldly. When the sun rose, a man and a woman walked out of the Martial Imperial Hall. But it was not Qin Feiyong. It was Fatso and Lu Hong. "Greetings, Elder Chu." The two stopped beside the middle-aged man and bowed. "Hurry up and send them away." Elder Chu waved his hand impatiently. The two nodded and turned to look at the crowd. Lu Hong took out a Chenkuan bag and handed it to Fatso. The place instantly quieted down. Fatso held the Chenkuan bag high, glanced at the crowd one by one, and was about to speak. Suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something, and looked at a certain place. It was the two middle-aged men under the big tree. But after a quick glance, he looked away, but a flash of light flashed in his eyes. At first, he glanced at them and found that the two were a little strange. Although they were dressed in tattered clothes, they gave people the illusion that they were cranes in a flock of chickens. So, he took a special look again. With this look, he found something fishy. The two were actually avoiding his eyes. They seemed to have a guilty conscience. And the most obvious point, everyone present was here for the elixir. When they saw Lu Hong take out the Chenkuan bag, they were very excited. But the two men, let alone being excited, didn't have any expression on their dirty faces. Obviously, it didn't make sense. Fatso whispered, "Lu Hong, be careful of the two men under the tree." Lu Hong glanced at the two men intentionally and said, "You suspect that there's something wrong with them?" "I don't know if there's anything wrong, but it's always good to be cautious." Fatso whispered. Lu Hong nodded imperceptibly and secretly paid attention to it. Although Fatso was a little despicable, his eyesight was quite accurate. Fatso smiled and said, "I believe that Fat Lord doesn't need to say what's in the Chenkuan bag. Everyone knows. Now, all of you prick up your ears and listen to Fat Lord clearly. Everyone will get one. Don't fight, and don't cut in line. Otherwise, you won't get anything. Those who get the elixir, remember to thank my Zhang Lao Da. Those who didn't get the elixir today, don't be discouraged. There will be another chance next time. It's starting." As soon as Fatso finished speaking, the person standing at the front quickly ran over and said with a flattering smile, "Fat Lord, I want a healing elixir." "Come and get the healing elixir from me." Lu Hong took out another Chenkuan bag, took out an elixir, and handed it to the person. "There are elixir patterns and it's shining. It's really a supreme-grade elixir." That person ran away excitedly as if he had found a treasure. Hearing that, everyone's hearts were burning and they couldn't wait to run over. At the same time, the two middle-aged men under the tree blended into the crowd and gradually approached the fatty and the young man. Fatso was paying attention to them at all times. His eyes suddenly widened as he shouted, "What are you two trying to do? Line up at the back." The two of them stopped in their tracks. A sharp light flashed in their eyes as they retreated to the back of the line. "There really is a problem." Fatso sneered secretly. Half an hour later, the 2,000 elixirs had finally been distributed. And now, it was the two middle-aged men's turn. Fatso shook his Chenkuan bag, grinned at the two of them and said, "You two, I'm sorry, but please come earlier next time." The two of them looked at each other, killing intent surging in their eyes. Boom. Next, they punched towards Fatso and Lu Hong. On their fists, there was actually a layer of battle chi. At such a close distance, they thought that they would be able to capture them easily. However, just as they were about to make their move, Fatso and Lu Hong retreated at the same time. "Your sister, you're actually a war king," Fatso roared, his face pale. After missing their target, the two men's eyes darkened and they quickly pounced again. Elder Chu raised his eyebrows and reacted. He hurriedly stepped in front of Fatso and Lu Hong and clenched his fists. He was too hasty and didn't even have time to activate his battle chi before he fiercely collided with the two men. Bang! Thump! Elder Chu immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. His face instantly turned pale. "Who are you? You actually dare to come to my martial imperial palace to kill people?" Chapter 148. The situation was bad. The two of them turned around decisively and with a few leaps, they landed at the back of the crowd and fled without looking back. "You want to leave? Not so easy." Elder Chu was furious and chased after them with a torrential aura. Fatso patted his chest and said with lingering fear, "That was close. Thankfully, we discovered that they were up to no good and were on our guard. Otherwise, we would have been dead this time." Lu Hong was shocked as well. Fatso frowned. "Why isn't Manager Li of Precious Treasure Pavilion here yet?" Lu Hong said, "I don't feel safe staying here. We should hurry back. If Manager Li doesn't see us when he arrives, he'll naturally head to Soothing Lake." "That's good too." Fatso nodded. However, just as they turned around, two men in black suddenly leaped out from the crowd, each holding a 3-foot-long sword that shone coldly as they stabbed towards the backs of the two of them. "There's more." Fatso and Elder Chu, Er's expressions changed. It was not one group of people, it was two groups of people. The swords pierced their backs. The two of them could not dodge at all. Shoo! At that critical moment, two resplendent battle chis tore through the air like lightning and entered the back of the heads of the two men in black. Ah! Accompanied by a tragic cry, the two of them fell into a pool of blood on the spot. Fatso and Elder Chu were shocked. They turned around hurriedly and saw a white-haired old man flying over from the void. Looking at the two men in black, they were already dead. The two of them exchanged glances, their eyes filled with fear and their bodies drenched in cold sweat. The fatty walked over and flipped the two people over. They were also middle-aged men, but their faces were very unfamiliar. He had never seen them before. The white-haired old man landed opposite Fatso and Elder Chu like a divine light. Fatso asked hurriedly, "Senior, are you Manager Li of Precious Treasure Pavilion?" "That's right." Manager Li nodded. Fatso complained, "Why are you only here now? We've been waiting for so long and we were almost killed." "I'm sorry, I've been too busy recently. If it weren't for my subordinate reminding me just now, I would have forgotten about it." Manager Li had an apologetic look on his face. He did not put on any airs of a battle emperor. He was very humble and easygoing. "Forget?" Fatso was speechless. Manager Li lowered his head and glanced at the two men in black. He immediately frowned. Fatso asked, "Senior, do you know him?" "Never seen him before." Manager Li shook his head. "Even you haven't seen him before?" Fatso was surprised. Steward Li shook his head and smiled. "There are millions of people in Swallow City. How can this old man have the time to get to know each and every one of them? Moreover, these two people are only martial arts great masters." At this moment, when Elder Chu returned, his face was filled with anger. When he saw Steward Li, he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Steward Li," without waiting for Manager Li to respond. He then looked at the two men in black and asked in surprise, "What's going on here?" Fatso said, "They also came to assassinate us. Fortunately, Manager Li came in time and saved our lives." "Bastard!" Elder Chu was furious. Lu Hong asked, "Elder Chu, where are the two battle kings? We didn't catch up and didn't see their faces clearly." Elder Chu was a little angry. "Then do you know them?" Fatso pointed at the two men lying on the ground. Elder Chu looked at the two men and tried hard to recall for a moment. He shook his head and said, "I don't remember, but you should have guessed which faction they belong to, right?" Fatso sneered. "Who else could it be other than the Danwang Hall?" Manager Li shook his head and said, "No, even if the Danwang Hall sent people to kill you, they wouldn't send two groups of people, let alone two martial arts great masters to dive." "Senior, do you mean that they are not in the same group?" Lu Hong was surprised. Manager Li said, "They are definitely not in the same group, but as for which faction they belong to, I don't dare to jump to conclusions." "Right, where is that brat Zhang Haotian?" Fatso laughed and said, "Zhang Laoda is in seclusion and asked us to send the pills to you. Zhang Laoda also asked me to ask you, how much is one image crystal?" This, Manager Li thought for a while and asked, "How much does he want?" 5. Fatso said. "So much." Manager Li was dumbfounded. He smiled bitterly and said, "He wants 5 at once. He really has too much money and nowhere to spend it." Fatty said proudly, "Hee, my boss doesn't have much now, but he has a lot of money." Manager Li was stunned. He then shook his head and laughed, saying, "How about this, since we are so close, I won't ask for a sky-high price. For one image crystal, I will sell it to him for 5 million gold coins." "What?" Fatso staggered in shock. 5 million for one? So expensive? 5. Wouldn't that be 25 million gold coins? Lu Hong was also dumbfounded. Although they all knew that image crystals were expensive, they didn't expect it to be so expensive. 25 million gold coins, for that brat Zhang Haotian, shouldn't be much, right? Manager Li said with a smile. Fatso's face twitched, and he said with a smile, "This may be a little difficult. Can it be cheaper?" "No, 5 million is already a friendship price. If it is cheaper, I will lose money." Manager Li shook his head. Lu Hong asked, "How much can a top-grade red fire glass pill be sold for?" This, Manager Li thought for a while and shook his head. "It hasn't been auctioned, so I don't know for the time being. But the price is definitely not cheap." Lu Hong took out an iron box and handed it to Manager Li. She smiled faintly and said, "There are 10 top-grade scarlet fire-colored glass pills here. 5 of them are yours. As for the other 5, Zhang Haotian hopes that you can help auction them off." Manager Li received the iron box hurriedly and opened it. Instantly, his old eyes shone brightly. Lu Hong said, "Zhang Haotian also said that he can exchange them for image crystals after the auction." Manager Li smiled. "No problem. I'll arrange it in the next couple of days." As they conversed, Elder Chu squatted on the ground and searched the bodies of the 2 people. All of a sudden, his eyes were filled with shock as he dug out 2 blood-colored badges from the robes of the 2 people. The front of both badges were engraved with 3 scarlet words. "Blood-killing badge." On the back, there was a menacing skull that looked exceptionally terrifying. When Manager Li noticed it, he said hurriedly, "Hurry, let me take a look." Elder Chu passed it to him hurriedly. Keeping the iron box, Manager Li grabbed the blood-colored badge and looked at it carefully before frowning. "Strange, why haven't I heard of this blood-killing badge before?" Fatso asked, "Could there be a mysterious faction hidden in Yen County?" "That's impossible. The royal family, Precious Treasure Pavilion, Danwang Hall and Martial Imperial Palace are all over every corner of Yen County. If there's truly a mysterious faction, they won't be able to escape our eyes. I'll take this badge with me. I'll help you guys investigate it when I have the time." Manager Li smiled. "Thank you, Senior." Fatso and Elder Chu bowed in gratitude. Shoo! Manager Li soared into the air, turning into a streak of light that sped into the distance. Fatso retracted his gaze and looked at the other badge in Elder Chu's hand, smiling. "Elder, can you give me that blood-killing badge? I want to show it to Zhang Laode." Elder Chu tossed it to him. "After you see it, bring it to Elder Wan and Elder Ji. Let them take a look as well." "All right." Fatso nodded and took the blood-killing badge. He raised his head and looked at the crowd outside the gate, still in shock. "Disperse. We'll come back next month." "Fat Lord, can you tell us why Zhang Haotian is giving us pills for free?" "Yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Does he have a motive?" someone in the crowd asked. They were the spies of the major factions. The fatty raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "You people are really measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Let me tell you, Boss Zhang is purely being kind. If you continue to doubt him, then from now on, we will cancel the distribution of pills." As soon as he said that, those who asked questions immediately became the target of public criticism. The others stared at them angrily. "Don't cancel it. We were wrong. We won't doubt him anymore." Those people quickly apologized. What a joke. If they doubted Zhang Haotian, they would be going against the entire city. Even if they had major factions behind them, they wouldn't dare to go against everyone present. Humph! Fatso snorted and turned to leave with Lu Hong. In fact, they didn't know Qin Feiyong's motive. Therefore, the spies of the major factions were destined to return without success. Back at the soothing lake, Lu Hong continued to cultivate. Fatso entered the castle and reported everything to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong was also quite surprised when the blood-killing badge was mentioned. He took the badge from Fatso and looked at it repeatedly for a while. But he couldn't find any information about the blood-killing badge in his memory. Qin Feiyong pondered and asked, "How was Lu Hong's performance?" When she took out the 10 red fire-color glass pills, Fat Lord didn't see any greed on her face. "There should be no problem," Fatso said. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "We can't let down our guard. We have to continue to observe." "Leave it to Fat Lord." Fatso patted his chest hard, then rubbed his hands and smiled. "Zhang Lauda, didn't you say last time that you would give me a perfect martial skill?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him and said, "Go and prepare 2 bamboo slips." "Thank you, Zhang Lauda. You are so good to Fat Lord." "Fat Lord, give yourself to you." Fatso was overjoyed. "Don't. Stay away from me." Qin Feiyong hurriedly pushed him away, goosebumps all over his body. Fatso laughed and took out 2 bamboo slips, pen and ink, and placed them neatly beside the iron book. Qin Feiyong also gave Fatso the martial skills of heart-locking fist and returned to origin steps. After the martial skills, Fatso happily took the blood-killing badge and went to find Elder Wan and the beautiful woman. Blood-killing badge, Danwang Hall. Is there any connection between the two? Qin Feiyong fell into deep thought. Danwang Hall. Meeting hall. 2 middle-aged men stood in front of Jia He, trembling with fear. Jia He stared at the 2 of them angrily, his body full of hostility, and shouted, "You are battle kings, and you can't even kill 2 martial masters. Don't you feel ashamed?" The 2 of them trembled and hurriedly said, "Elder, please give us another chance. We will definitely not fail again." Jia He said, "All right, I will give you another chance. If you succeed, you will be the next law enforcement elder. But if you fail, I will kill you. While you are at it, go and investigate the background of the other group of people," he added. Chapter 149. I've finally broken through. In a cultivation room in the Martial Imperial Hall, Ling Yunfei opened his eyes, and 2 beams of light shot out. "I remember when we first met in Black Bear City. Qin Feiyong and I were both 4-star martial masters. But now, he's already an 8-star martial master. However, as long as I take this top-grade red fire-colored glass pill, I can catch up with him." He muttered to himself, took out a jade box, opened the lid, and a fiery red pill appeared. Without any hesitation, he threw the pill into his mouth. A moment later, his aura rose again and again. In the end, it stopped at an 8-star martial master. "Thank you, Qin Feiyong." After muttering to himself, he got up and left the cultivation room. When he came to the door of the cultivation hall, a deacon elder smiled and said, "Ling Yunfei, Elder Wan wants you to go to his place after you come out of seclusion." "Thank you for telling me." Ling Yunfei cupped his hands and went to the law enforcement hall with a trace of suspicion. The law enforcement hall was the residence of Elder Wan and the beautiful woman. Dong dong. Ling Yunfei stood in front of a door on the 2nd floor and gently knocked on the door. "Come in." Elder Wan's voice came from inside. Ling Yunfei pushed the door open and entered. Elder Wan was sitting at the desk, looking down at a blood-colored token. It was the blood-killing token that Fatso sent to him. Seeing that it was Ling Yunfei, he put down the blood-killing token and said with a smile, "It's you, close the door." After Ling Yunfei closed the door, he walked to the desk, bowed, and asked, "Elder, why are you looking for me?" Elder Wan smiled and said, "I want to ask you a question." "Question?" Ling Yunfei was puzzled. Elder Wan said, "Is your father called Ling Feng?" Ling Yunfei's heart trembled as he asked, "Elder, how did you know?" Elder Wan smiled and said, "This old man saw that you and Ling Feng looked very similar, and both of you are from Black Bear City's Ling family, so I went to ask Ling. Sure enough, she told me that your father is called Ling Feng." "Elder, do you know my father?" Ling Yunfei was bewildered. Elder Wan nodded his head and smiled. Your father was once a disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall. Furthermore, he was as talented as you. Back then, he was rather outstanding amongst the younger generation. I see. Ling Yunfei suddenly understood. However, he didn't seem to be very surprised. It was as if he already knew all of this. Elder Wan sighed. Yunfei Ling, has already told me about your father's death. As the enforcement elder of the Martial King Hall, I am deeply sorry for not being able to protect my disciples. Ling Yunfei said, Elder's words are too serious. If your father didn't die, I'm afraid he would have already become a war king. To tell you the truth, this old man called you here to ask, did your father tell you anything before he died? Elder Wan asked. My father died before I was even born. Ling Yunfei was a little disappointed. Elder Wan frowned and said, What about your mother? Did she say anything to you? Ling Yunfei shook his head. That's impossible. Elder Wan frowned and waved his hand. You can leave first. Cultivate well and don't let your father down. This disciple will take his leave. Ling Yunfei cupped his hands and turned to leave. After walking out of the door, he turned around to look at the law enforcement hall, and a strange light flashed across his eyes. Then, he went straight to the Calm Heart Lake and saw Fatso and Lu Hong sparring by the lake. He quietly walked over and teased. When did the two of you become so close? The two of them were shocked and turned their heads to look. Fuck, you gave me a fright. Fatso patted his chest and laughed. Ling brat, come, practice with Fat Lord. You. Ling Yunfei looked at Fatso and shook his head. I'm not free, where's Zhang Haotian? Oh, you're looking down on Fat Lord? Take this. Fatso let out a strange cry, his 5 fingers bent, but when he got close to Ling Yunfei, his 5 bent fingers suddenly clenched into a fist, and punched towards Ling Yunfei's chest. Heart-lock killing fist. Ling Yunfei's eyes narrowed, and hurriedly punched out. And he didn't even use the true chi. Bang! The two of them punched each other, and Fatso's body shook as he retreated. How could this be? Fatso's face was filled with disbelief. You've just practiced the heart-lock killing fist, and you haven't even crossed the threshold. What are you showing off for? Ling Yunfei despised him. Fatso snorted unhappily and asked, Has your cultivation become stronger again? I just broke through to 8-star martial master. Ling Yunfei grinned. 8-star martial master? Fatso was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses and said angrily, Bastard, why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't ask. Cut the crap. I'm going to find Zhang Haotian. You two continue to cultivate your relationship. Ling Yunfei smiled evilly and turned to run to the attic. Cultivate relationship? Fatso and Lu Hong were stunned, then looked at each other at the same time and said disdainfully, You. At the same time they looked away, crossed their arms, and looked unhappy. In the castle. Qin Feiyang imitated the return formula and asked, What's the matter? Yes. Ling Yunfei, who was standing behind him, nodded. Qin Feiyang said, Speak. Ling Yunfei said in a deep voice, Do you still remember that my mother was imprisoned by the Ling family? The reason was that my dead father told my mother something. Qin Feiyang suddenly became interested. He stopped imitating and turned to look at Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei said, My father used to be a disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall. Once, he went out alone to train and entered a very strange place. He was seriously injured there, and even his cultivation was crippled. So, you were lying to me before? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. He clearly remembered that Ling Yunfei had told him that his father was seriously injured in the Black Bear Mountain. Ling Yunfei hurriedly said, No, at that time, I was also kept in the dark. I only knew the truth after my mother escaped. Qin Feiyang said, Then what is the truth? Back then, after my father escaped from that place, because his cultivation was crippled, he did not return to the Martial Imperial Hall. Instead, he returned to Black Bear City. But on the way back to Black Bear City, because his injuries were too serious, he fainted in front of a village. The people in that village were kind enough to save my father's life. It was when he was recuperating in that village that my father met my mother. My mother was in charge of taking care of him at that time. After a while, they gradually fell in love with each other. Not long after they got married. However, for some reason, my father's injuries kept repeating and could not be healed. Until one day, it began to worsen. Seeing that his health was deteriorating day by day, my father began to worry because he had not given my mother a status. And at that time, my mother was already pregnant with me. My father also wanted to give me a better environment to grow up in. The Black Bear City's Ling family was undoubtedly the first choice. So my father decided to bring my mother back to the Ling family, hoping that the Ling family would take good care of us. But my father did not expect that not only did the Ling family not take care of my mother and me, they even bullied and humiliated us for more than 10 years. Ling Yunfei finished in one breath, his eyes full of hatred. Sigh. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. The fate of this family was truly tragic. He asked, "Your second uncle treated you like this because of that strange place?" "That's right. Because of the long journey, my father's body was very weak. After returning to the Ling family, he passed away that night." On the night of the vigil, my mother was beside my father's coffin and muttered something about that strange place. My second uncle happened to hear it. My second uncle began to interrogate her. But my mother kept her mouth shut. Second uncle was flustered and exasperated, so he imprisoned my mother and announced to the public that my mother had returned to her parents' home. In the end, my mother's family and the other people in the village were also killed by my second uncle because of this matter. Ling Yunfei clenched his fists tightly, his teeth chattering non-stop. Qin Feiyong was somewhat incredulous. What exactly was in that strange place? So much so that Ling Yunfei's second uncle would use such unscrupulous means to get the information out of Lu Ji's mouth. Ling Yunfei said, "According to my mother, there are large amounts of treasures in that place, but it is extremely dangerous. Once you enter, you will definitely die." Qin Feiyong asked, "Where is that place?" Ling Yunfei said, "In the extreme north of Star Moon City, there is a desolate desert, and that place is at the end of the desert." Star Moon City. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, "You told me this because you want to go there?" "Yes, I want to go and see what the place that killed my father is like. And what treasures are hidden there." Ling Yunfei nodded, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Then he said, "You have this ancient castle in Xueqi. I believe that we should be able to get away safely. Moreover, it is best that we set off immediately." "Why?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Ling Yunfei said in a low voice, "Because Elder Wan also asked me about this before. I think he also wants to know the location of that place." Even Elder Wan was asking about it? Qin Feiyong couldn't help but be tempted. He asked, "That place, other than your father, who else knows about it?" Ling Yunfei shook his head. "Definitely no one else. Otherwise, Elder Wan and the others would have already gone there and wouldn't have come to ask me now." Qin Feiyong gritted his teeth and nodded. "All right, we will set off in 5 days." "Why 5 days?" Ling Yunfei didn't understand. Qin Feiyong said, "I want to refine some healing pills and bone replenishing pills, and I have already asked Manager Li to help me buy the image crystal. With the image crystal, it will be much more convenient." "That's true." Ling Yunfei nodded. But now, the biggest problem was getting out of the city. The vicinity of the Martial Imperial Hall was constantly being monitored. Once they walked out of the Martial Imperial Hall, it was equivalent to walking into a grave. Moreover, Shizhang was following them closely. It would be difficult to sneak out. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said, "These few days, go around and see if there is a shortcut out of the city. Also find 2 illusion pills just in case." "Okay." Ling Yunfei nodded. Chapter 150. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Qin Feiyong grabbed a Chenkuan bag and left the castle, feeling a little tired. For 5 days and nights, he refined pills without stopping. In total, he refined 9,000 healing pills and 9,000 bone replenishing pills. A total of 18,000 pills. On average, he refined 1 pill every 20 breaths. For him, this was already his limit. He pushed open the door and walked out of the attic. A gust of cold wind swept over, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. The sky was also filled with a layer of dense clouds. It was now the winter solstice. The weather had gradually turned cold. The cold wind was biting cold, blowing on people's faces like sharp blades, causing pain on their skin. Dada! Fatso and Lu Hong ran down from the second floor. Both of them had added a thick layer of clothing. Fatso chuckled and said, Fat Lord thought that someone had broken in. So it's you, boss. Lu Hong walked out of the attic, looked at the hazy sky, and said, "This damn weather. It was quite warm a few days ago, but the temperature suddenly dropped. It will probably start snowing next month." Qin Feiyong smiled. He turned around and entered the room. After closing the door, he handed the Chenkuan bag to Lu Hong and instructed, "During the time I'm not here, distribute medicinal pills to everyone on time." Letting Lu Hong take care of the pills was actually a test for her. "Okay." Lu Hong nodded and said, "Wait, what do you mean? You're leaving?" Fatso also looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. "Shoo." Qin Feiyong made a shushing gesture and said in a low voice, "Ling Yunfei and I are going to Xingyue City. Don't tell anyone. If anyone asks, just say that I'm cultivating in the castle." "Why are you going to Xingyue City? Is there something good going on?" "Zhang Laoda, why didn't you bring Fat Lord along when there's something good? You're too disloyal." Lu Hong looked puzzled. Fatty's face was filled with dissatisfaction. "If I say it's suicide, will you still go?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at Fatso and solemnly instructed, "Remember, no matter what happens, you are not allowed to leave the Martial Imperial Hall. In addition, you will spread the news tomorrow that mortals have priority when it comes to collecting pills in the future." "For mortals?" Fatso and Li Tianlan looked at each other, their eyes filled with confusion. "Just do as I say. Also, change the distribution from once a month to once every 10 days. As for why I'm doing this, you'll know in the future." Qin Feiyong didn't explain much and asked, "Has Manager Li delivered the image crystal?" "Not yet. That old thing is very treacherous. I heard from the martial arts hall's disciples that he only auctioned one supreme-grade red fire-colored glass elixir every day in order to raise the price." Fatso spoke in disdain. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "This is very normal. How much was the transaction price?" Fatso thought for a moment and said 1 million on the first day, 4 million on the second day, 2 million on the third day, 3 million yesterday. Today's result is not out yet, but it should not be lower than 4 million. "So little?" Qin Feiyong frowned. In this way, 5 supreme-grade red fire-colored glass elixirs would only be slightly more than 20 million. Only 4 image crystals could be purchased. This is still considered little? Fatso and Li Tianlan were speechless. An ordinary red fire-colored glass elixir would be auctioned for around 1 million. It was 4 times more than that. What else did you want? Besides, 4 million gold coins. Even the top clans in Yen City would feel the pinch for half a day. Don't look at me like that. Who doesn't want more money? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at the two and walked out of the pavilion. He came to Shizheng's downstairs and smiled. "Elder, can I trouble you to make a trip to the treasure pavilion?" "Why are you going to the treasure pavilion?" Shizheng was puzzled. Qin Feiyong laughed. "Help me get the image crystals, a total of 4. The remaining gold coins will be your reward for your hard work." Shizheng hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Okay, but you are not allowed to run around. Other than the Martial Imperial Palace, where else can I go?" Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Shizheng smiled, jumped down, and quickly left. Qin Feiyong was about to enter the house when Ling Yunfei ran over and asked, "Are you ready?" Qin Feiyong nodded and said, "Now we only lack the image crystals. What about you? Have you found a shortcut?" Ling Yunfei shook his head. "There are no shortcuts. On the 4 walls, there are black armored guards of the royal family guarding. If we climb over the wall, we will definitely be intercepted, so we can only go out through the city gate." "Open and above board?" Qin Feiyong laughed bitterly. "What are you going to do?" Fatso came over and looked at the two sneakily. "It has nothing to do with you. Mind your own business." Ling Yunfei glared at him, then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "I have also prepared the illusion pills. Let's just wait until midnight and find a chance to sneak out." Qin Feiyong thought for a moment and said helplessly, "That's the only way now." More than 2 hours later, Shizheng finally returned. He took out 4 image crystals from his Chenkuan bag and placed them on the tea table. Ling Yunfei, Fatso, and Lu Hong immediately surrounded him, their eyes flashing with a strange light. It was the first time they had seen the image crystals. Qin Feiyong was much calmer. He stood up and cupped his hands. "Thank you, Elder. Zheng smiled. It's nothing. Fatso laughed. Elder Shi, you must have received a large sum of money for your hard work, right? Can you share some with me? Hard work? Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. He took out a piece of paper from his chest and handed it to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong took a closer look and his face turned green. It was actually another IOU. It said that today, Jiang Haotian owed the treasure pavilion 1 million gold coins. If he did not pay it off within a week, the interest would be 1,000 gold coins per day. At the bottom, there was Steward Li's signature. Why do I still owe him 1 million? Qin Feiyong looked at Zheng with a puzzled face. Zheng said, your 5 supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills were sold for a total of 21 million, and the treasure pavilion still has to take a commission. Look at my head. How could I forget about this? Qin Feiyong slapped the back of his head hard. As soon as he heard about the commission, he understood. The rule of the treasure pavilion was to take 1/10 of the commission. Out of the total price of 21 million, he would have to take a cut of 1 million. Then there was only 9 million left. The 4 image crystals were 20 million. After deducting 9 million, he naturally owed 1 million. Ling Yunfei and the other 2 were also a little stunned. It was right to take a commission. But they were all old acquaintances. Couldn't they take a little less? 1 million was enough for an ordinary person to live a carefree life for several lifetimes. He even wrote an IOU seriously, and even had to calculate the interest when it was overdue. What a scam. Cough, cough. Qin Feiyong coughed and said with a faint smile. He doesn't have the final say in the treasure pavilion. He is also doing things according to the rules. It's understandable. After that, he took out his Xueqi bag, counted out 2 million gold coins and handed it to Zheng, saying with a smile, Elder, I have to trouble you to make another trip. You can use the extra 900,000 to buy some good wine. Zheng said with a smile. How can I do that? Although he said so, he didn't seem to be polite and directly took it. What a joke. 900,000 gold coins, for a deacon elder like him, was a very rich guest. As soon as Zheng left, Fatso complained. 900,000 gold coins at once. How generous. Why didn't you give the fat lord 900,000 gold coins? Fatso, you damn. The top-grade red fire-colored glass pill you snatched is worth 4 million. What else do you want? Do you want me to give you all I have? Qin Feiyong said angrily. That's not necessary. Just give me 1 million to spend. Fatso smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyong was physically and mentally exhausted. Why were there so many top-grade goods around him? Do your job well. When I come back, you will be rewarded. Everyone has an image crystal. Drip your blood to recognize it as your master. Qin Feiyong took the lead and grabbed one. He bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on it. The image crystal immediately emitted a faint bloody light. But soon the bloody light dissipated. Do I have one too? Lu Hong pointed at herself in disbelief. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. He gave it to Lu Hong to make it easier to contact her. After all, Lu Hong was working for him now. Lu Hong was very excited. Even a martial arts genius like Feng Ling Heir and a warlord like Zheng didn't have an image crystal now. She actually had one. It was like a dream. After dripping their blood to recognize it as their master, the 4 of them dripped a drop of blood on each other's image crystal. In this way, a contract bridge was established. When they wanted to send a message to each other, they only needed to activate the image crystal and think about it. After putting the image crystal into the Xueqi bag, Qin Feiyong looked at Ling Yunfei and said, There's no time to lose. Give me the illusion pill and we'll act immediately. Ling Yunfei was stunned and asked, Didn't we agree to wait until midnight? Qin Feiyong said, If we wait until midnight, I won't know how to send Zheng away. Ling Yunfei suddenly said, So you gave him 900,000 to send him away? You're really cunning. Bullshit. I was just thanking him for taking care of me during this period. Qin Feiyong angrily glared at him. His words were righteous and magnanimous. Ling Yunfei and the other 2 rolled their eyes. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely sigh. Birds of a feather flocked together. They were all bad birds. After taking the illusion pill, Qin Feiyang and Ling Yunfei both turned into slightly stronger young men. Of course. Ling Yunfei's eye-catching sky-blue hair and eyes also turned black. How is it? After disguising themselves, the two of them looked at Fatso and Lu Hong and asked. After looking at the two of them carefully, Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Ling Yunfei is fine, but your linen clothes are too eye-catching. You have to change them. Linen clothes can blink? Qin Feiyang frowned. Why don't you go and take a look? Who in the Martial Imperial Hall is still wearing these street goods? Only you, the only one. Don't you think it's eye-catching? Lu Hong was a little helpless. You don't understand. Zhang Lao Da is pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. To be precise, he is pretending to be cool. Fatso smiled evilly. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He was very helpless. He had no choice but to ask Ling Yunfei for a disciple's clothes and put them on. That's about it. Lu Hong nodded. Then let's go. Chapter 151. The two kept a low profile and remained calm. As such, they did not attract anyone's attention along the way. After all, there were so many disciples in the Martial Emperor Hall, and most of them were cultivating in seclusion. It was normal for one or two unfamiliar faces to appear. Soon, the reception hall entered their line of sight. I thought it would be difficult. Ling Yunfei mumbled in disdain. We can't be careless before leaving the Martial Emperor Hall. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. A moment later, the two walked out from the reception hall, and the entrance was right in front of them. Once they stepped out of the entrance, it was the same as a fish returning to the ocean. You two stop right there. However, at that moment, Elder Chu walked out from the reception hall, and when he saw the two, he frowned slightly and yelled. Their bodies stiffened. They were only a step away from leaving the Martial Emperor Hall. They had to admit that this Elder Chu had appeared at the right time. Let's run. Ling Yunfei said in a low voice. Run if you can outrun the battle emperor. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes, before he turned toward Elder Chu and bowed. Greetings, Elder. Ling Yunfei immediately turned around and bowed as well. Elder Chu frowned and said, Why haven't I seen you two before? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Since we entered the Martial Emperor Hall, we have been cultivating in the cultivation room. It's normal that you don't remember us. Elder Chu said flatly, That's impossible. Show me your identity medallions. Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. As a matter of fact, he was most afraid of encountering Elder Chu. Since everyone who entered the Martial Emperor Hall had to obtain their identity badges from him, Elder Chu had seen all of them before, be it the deacon elders or the disciples. Elder Chu raised his eyebrows and yelled, What are you waiting for? Show it now. It seems like we won't be able to escape. Ling Yunfei's heart was filled with bitterness. Once Elder Chu discovered his and Qin Feiyang's real identities, they would surely be under strict surveillance. Why didn't you wait for me? Just as the two of them were in despair, a heavenly voice sounded from behind Elder Chu. He saw a woman in a tight white suit that showed off her figure to the fullest. She angrily ran towards him. It was Fengling Air. She was still wearing her mask, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. As soon as she came over, she pulled their ears and said angrily, Bastards, we clearly agreed to go to Zhanbao Pavilion together, but you didn't wait for me. Are you asking for a beating? Madam, we were wrong. Big sister, it hurts, let go. The two hurriedly begged for mercy. Although Fengling Air was very barbaric now, she was an angel in their eyes. They came at the right time. Elder Chu, we're leaving. Fengling Air turned around and smiled at Elder Chu. Then, she grabbed their ears and dragged them outside, scolding them from time to time. What's the situation? Elder Chu was dumbfounded. Looks like I'm really getting old. Even my memory is getting worse. A moment later, he came to his senses, shook his head and sighed. Ling Yunfei said with a bitter face, Senior Sister Ling, can you let go of me now? Fengling Air snorted coldly. It's not that easy. Tell me, the two of you changed your appearances and sneaked out of the Danwang Hall. What are you trying to do? The two of them were shocked. Could it be that Fengling Air knew their real identities? Fengling Air let go of her hand and sneered. You can fool others with your little tricks, but you can't fool me. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll take you back. Qin Feiyong rubbed his ears and frowned. How did you know? Ling Yun has been sneaking around for the past few days. I felt that something was wrong. So not long ago when he left the cultivation hole, I followed him. As expected, the two of you are up to no good. Feng Ling said. Qin Feiyong and Elder Chu looked at each other, and a bitter smile appeared on their faces. A woman who was too smart and difficult to deal with was also a kind of trouble. Ling Yunfei said in a low voice, Senior Sister Ling, it's like this. We are going to Star Moon City, and we might not be able to return. Star Moon City? Feng Ling frowned and said disdainfully, Don't scare me. I grew up being scared. Tell me, why are you going to Star Moon City? We. Ling Yunfei stammered. Seeing that Feng Ling was about to lose her patience, Ling Yunfei's mind flashed and he laughed. I haven't seen Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang for a long time. Qin Feiyong misses them, so we want to go to Star Moon City to see them. Qin Feiyong staggered and almost fell down. This guy was too good at bullshitting, right? Feng Ling looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, Is this true? Qin Feiyong's face twitched, and he nodded. It's true. As long as he could send this woman away, it didn't matter if he sacrificed a little. Feng Ling thought for a while and said, I haven't seen Qingzhu for a long time, so I might as well go with you. Cough cough. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and Ling Yunfei both choked on their saliva. Feng Ling looked at the two of them playfully and said, I haven't told you, but I already knew her when I was 10 years old. At that time, she went to the Zhang family to play, and I was still in Black Bear City. The two of them didn't listen at all. It was as if they had eaten fleas, and their faces were extremely ugly. There was no other way. Since he had already said it, he couldn't change his mind, right? He could only let Feng Ling follow him. When they reached Star Moon City, he would find an opportunity to get rid of her. It was already noon when the three of them entered District XC. Feng Ling said, Since we're not in a hurry, let's go to Flying Phoenix Restaurant to eat something first. Qin Feiyong and Ling Yunfei looked at each other, and a glint flashed across their eyes. They might as well get rid of her at Flying Phoenix Restaurant. A moment later, the three of them arrived at Flying Phoenix Restaurant. It wasn't the first time Feng Ling wore a mask, so everyone in Yen City knew about it. The waiter immediately greeted them warmly. Just as he sat down, Qin Feiyong patted his head and said to Feng Ling and Ling Yunfei, I'm going to buy something. You guys eat first, I'll be back in a while. Are you really going to buy something? Feng Ling looked at him with a smile. Nonsense, if I'm going to see Qingzhu and the others, I definitely have to prepare a decent greeting gift, right? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at her, stood up, and walked towards the door. As he turned around, he gave Ling Yunfei a look. Ling Yunfei was very distressed. Originally, he also thought of this excuse. But he didn't expect that Qin Feiyong actually thought of the same thing as him and even said it first. Now what excuse should he use to get away? Get out of the way, get out of the way. Don't you see the eldest prince is coming? Don't block the way. Qin Feiyong just stepped out of the door, and a domineering shout suddenly sounded on the street in front. It sounded particularly harsh. The diners in the lobby were shocked. Qin Feiyong also raised his head and looked over. He saw the eldest prince, surrounded by 4 palace guards, walking towards the Flying Phoenix Pavilion. Next to the eldest prince, there was a girl. She had an exquisite figure, black hair like a waterfall, and a snow-white dress. As she walked, it fluttered like a beautiful angel. It was particularly moving. There was no makeup on her cheeks. Because she was born beautiful, she didn't need anything to decorate her. It was Lin Yi. Why is she walking with the eldest prince? Qin Feiyong frowned slightly. The 2 guards walking in front saw Qin Feiyong blocking the door. They were furious and shouted, Don't you see the eldest prince is coming? Get out of the way. Qin Feiyong's eyes turned cold. Oh, you have a bit of a temper. Oh, it turns out to be a disciple of Martial Emperor Hole. But who do you think you are? How dare you block the way of our eldest prince? Do you think you are Jiang Haotian? The 2 guards glanced at Qin Feiyong's clothes and shouted arrogantly. Hearing this sentence, Qin Feiyong was obviously a little stunned. The eldest prince raised his eyebrows and said impatiently, Drag him away. The 2 guards were about to make a move. No need. I can walk by myself. Qin Feiyong walked to the side with a blank expression. When the eldest prince passed by him, he whispered, "Eldest prince, right? I promise you will regret it." And the eldest prince stopped and turned his head to look at Qin Feiyong. His eyes were a little stunned. But in the end, he just smiled contemptuously and walked into the Flying Phoenix house with Lin Yi. This was a kind of contempt that went deep into the bone marrow. He didn't put Qin Feiyong in his eyes at all. He only regarded him as a brainless idiot. Feng Ling saw all of this, but she didn't say anything. She pursed her lips with a hint of playfulness. Ling Yunfei saw the eldest prince, but his eyes flashed coldly. Suddenly, he had an idea. He retracted his gaze and looked at Feng Ling. He whispered, "Qin Feiyong must be very sad now. Senior sister, I will go and comfort him. By the way, I will pick some gifts for Luo Qingzhu and the others. You can enjoy them slowly." After that, he got up and ran toward Qin Feiyong. After meeting up with Qin Feiyong, the two quickly jumped into the crowd and rushed toward the city gate. Feng Ling was stunned and sneered, "Two bastards, do you think I don't know what you are planning? You want to slip away? No way." She also got up and chased out. The waiter who brought the dishes over was dumbfounded. "Where is she? We finally got rid of her." Ling Yunfei turned his head and looked behind him. He didn't see Feng Ling and finally let out a long sigh. But at the same time, Qin Feiyong's body stiffened, and his eyes stared straight ahead. "What are you looking at?" Ling Yunfei was suspicious. He looked along and his body stiffened. More than 10 meters in front of them, a masked woman stood in the crowd with her hands crossed over her chest. She was looking at them playfully. Who else could it be but Feng Ling? When did she run to the front? Their minds were in a mess. Alas! Qin Feiyong let out a helpless sigh and walked over with large strides. This woman was definitely not going to get rid of her now. After the two walked in, Feng Ling asked with a smile, "Aren't you going to choose a gift? Why are you going to the city gate?" Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly and said, "Okay, it's our fault. It's getting late, let's go." Ling Yunfei shook his head and sighed. "Senior sister, you are so beautiful and smart. Which man will dare to marry you in the future? I am really worried about you." Feng Ling said proudly, "The men who want to marry me can line up from here to the Martial Imperial Palace. Why do you need to worry?" "So confident?" Ling Yunfei was shocked. Chapter 152. Feng Ling looked at Qin Feiyong, pursed her lips, and said with a smile, "Do you know why Lin Yi and the eldest prince came out?" Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Ling Yunfei asked curiously, "Why did they come out?" "Are you stupid? They are about to get married. Of course they came out to cultivate their relationship. But according to my observation just now, it was the eldest prince who was courting. Lin Yi was very indifferent. Obviously, she was thinking about someone." Feng Ling glanced at Qin Feiyong playfully. Ling Yunfei also looked at Qin Feiyong and found that Qin Feiyong's face was extremely gloomy at the moment. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he sneered, "I don't know what kind of expression will appear on the eldest prince's face after knowing your identity." Qin Feiyong still didn't say a word. Half an hour later, the three finally walked out of Yen City and galloped towards Star Moon City along the main road. The berserk beasts near Yen City were very powerful. If they took the small roads or deep mountains, with their strength, they would be eaten by berserk beasts halfway, let alone going to Star Moon City. But even if they took the main road, it was not necessarily safe, because some berserk beasts would ambush at night. So at night, the three hid in the castle to cultivate and waited until dawn to continue their journey. Along the way, there was no danger. 10 days later, in the evening, a majestic city finally entered the sight of the three. Although the scale was not as big as Yen City, it was not much worse. When they came to the city gate, Qin Feiyong looked up and saw 3 eye-catching words. Star Moon City. At the city gate, there were also 2 guards checking, but it was not as strict as Yen City. They only asked a few questions. While Feng Ling dealt with the 2 guards, Ling Yunfei poked Qin Feiyong's back and whispered, "Are we really going to enter Star Moon City?" Qin Feiyong whispered, "If you tell her the truth, we don't have to go in." "No." Ling Yunfei shook his head. What if that place really had some treasures? If he brought Feng Ling Heir along, wouldn't he get a share? All right, you can go in now. At this moment, one of the guards waved his hand and said. Feng Ling Heir turned around and glanced at Qin Feiyang and Xiao Luo complacently. She then walked into the city. Let's go. We'll think of something after we get in. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice and quickly followed. How troublesome. Ling Yunfei sighed inwardly. He quickly caught up and asked, Senior Sister Ling, where are we going now? Nonsense. Of course I'm going to look for Qing Zhu. I've been to Star Moon City before, so I know where she is. Feng Ling Heir led the two of them to the entrance of the treasure pavilion. What can I do for you three? A staff member came up and asked. Feng Ling Heir said, Go and inform your young miss that Feng Ling Heir is here to look for her. The staff member looked at the three of them suspiciously. Although they were all unfamiliar faces, they must have something to do with the young Mississippi. He did not dare to neglect them and hurriedly went to report. In less than 100 breaths, a young girl in a white silk dress walked out quickly. Her figure was slender, and her soft skin was like congealed fat, suffused with strands of luster. Her exquisite facial features were like a masterpiece of heaven, without the slightest flaw. Her pair of big black eyes were as clear as a mirror, without the slightest impurity. Her waterfall-like black hair fluttered behind her. She was like a blooming snow lotus, white and flawless, pure as ice and jade. She's Luo Qingzhu? Ling Yunfei asked, with a trace of surprise in his eyes. Although Luo Qingzhu had been to Black Bear City many times, at that time he was not qualified to come into contact with such a proud daughter of heaven. Qin Feiyang nodded, looking a little embarrassed. Luo Qingzhu swept her eyes across the hall. When she saw Feng Ling Heir, she said in surprise, Sister Ling Heir, it's really you. The staff member also tactfully retreated. Feng Ling Heir went up and said with a smile, Little girl, I haven't seen you for a few months. You've grown so beautiful? Luo Qingzhu blushed and said with a smile, No matter how beautiful I am, I can't compare to you, Sister Ling Heir. Little girl, your little mouth is getting sweeter and sweeter. Come, let sister kiss you. Feng Ling Heir stretched out her jade finger and lifted Luo Qingzhu's chin, looking very seductive. Do you think we don't exist? Qin Feiyang muttered. These two lasses were simply torturing single dogs. Luo Qingzhu's face turned even redder. She grabbed Feng Ling Heir's jade hand and rolled her eyes at her. She said with dissatisfaction, You're only 3 years older than me. Can you not always call me little girl? I can't help it. Who told me to be older than you? Feng Ling Heir smiled proudly. 3 years older? Qin Feiyang was shocked. If he remembered correctly, Luo Qingzhu was about the same age as him. In other words, Feng Ling Heir was only 18 years old? An 18-year-old 2-star martial ancestor realm. This woman was truly a monster. No wonder the martial imperial hall doted on her so much. Feng Ling Heir looked around and said, Little girl, I came all the way from Yen City to see you. Are you going to treat me like this? Look at me. I was so happy that I forgot. Come with me. Luo Qingzhu grabbed Feng Ling Heir's hand and turned to walk to the second floor. Feng Ling Heir didn't greet Qin Feiyang and Luo Qingzhu. She just left with Luo Qingzhu while laughing. It seems that we've been treated like air. Ling Yunfei smiled bitterly. Isn't this the best chance? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He turned and ran outside. Chance? Ling Yunfei was stunned. He immediately reacted and chased after him. On the second floor of the treasure pavilion, Feng Ling Heir smiled and said, Qingzhu, I'm not the only one who came. There's an old friend of yours. Old friend? Luo Qingzhu was stunned and asked who? Behind you. Feng Ling Heir pointed behind her. Luo Qingzhu looked and shook her head. There's no one. No one? Feng Ling Heir quickly turned around and was dumbfounded. Where were those two bastards? Not good. I was careless and let them escape. Feng Ling Heir was flustered and exasperated. She glanced at both sides of the corridor. At the end of the corridor, there was a window. She quickly ran over and jumped out, landing on the street. She looked at both ends of the street. Not to mention people, there wasn't even a shadow. Luo Qingzhu also jumped down from the window. She looked at Feng Ling Heir in confusion. There's indeed something wrong with those two bastards. Feng Ling Er clenched her jade-like hands and gritted her teeth in hatred. Luo Qingzhu frowned and said, Sister Ling Er, who is it? Feng Ling Er whispered a name in her ear. What? It's actually him. Luo Qingzhu's eyes were filled with disbelief. He actually came to Star Moon City? Feng Ling Er said in a deep voice. He told me that he came to Star Moon City to see you and Zhao Shuang. But now it seems that he has other motives. Luo Qingzhu said, Sister Ling Er, don't worry. Star Moon City only has one city gate. I'll immediately get a few battle kings to block the city gate. We'll find them sooner or later. Good idea. Battle kings are much faster than them. As long as we trap them in the city, we won't have to worry about not being able to catch them. Feng Ling Er sneered. I say, is there a need to do this? A bitter laugh rang out. Soon after, Qin Feiyang and Ling Yunfei walked out of a small alley not far away. Their faces were filled with helplessness and bitterness. They knew that their speed couldn't compare to Feng Ling Er's, so they hid here the moment they ran out of the treasure pavilion. They wanted to wait until Feng Ling Er couldn't find them. Then they would naturally give up. But they never expected that these two women would actually plan to send battle kings to block them. Wasn't this the same as forcing them to their deaths? Why were all the women they met so difficult to deal with? Why aren't you running? Don't worry, I won't chase after you. Feng Ling Er looked at them playfully. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, all right. We admit defeat. We surrender. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Ling Yunfei nodded to comfort himself. Follow me up first. Luo Qingzhu glanced at the two of them. She couldn't tell who was Qin Feiyang and who was Ling Yunfei. Following Luo Qingzhu, the three of them went to the second floor and entered a simple lounge. After closing the door, Luo Qingzhu looked at the two of them and asked, which one of you is Qin Feiyang? Me. Qin Feiyang sat down on a chair. Since he couldn't escape, he might as well take things as they came. Luo Qingzhu walked to him and scolded, you're really bold. You actually dared to come out alone. Aren't you afraid that the Danwang Hall will kill you? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He stood up and stepped forward. Face to face with Luo Qingzhu, he said flirtatiously, are you worried about me? Don't tell me you've really fallen for me? Luo Qingzhu stuttered. Her cheeks were slightly red. This little girl's face is actually red? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He hurriedly took 2 steps back. This was not a joke. Right, where's Zhao Shuang? Is she okay? He quickly changed the topic. She's in the Martial King Hall. Do you want me to call her? Luo Qingzhu lowered her head and said, let's not disturb her. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He took out 2 top-grade red fire-colored glass pellets from his Cosmos bag and said with a smile, here, thank you for helping me hide my identity. Luo Qingzhu looked at the 2 pellets. Her beautiful eyes bloomed with a strange light, but in the end, she shook her head and said, you've already given us perfect martial arts. We can't accept this. Perfect martial arts? Feng Ling Er was very surprised. Yes, he gave us 2, and one of them was an auxiliary martial arts. Luo Qingzhu nodded and smiled. She finally recovered her previous spirit. Feng Ling Er looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Qin Feiyang directly stuffed the 2 pellets into Luo Qingzhu's hands. He turned to look at Feng Ling Er and said temptingly, if you let us go, I'll also give you an auxiliary martial arts. In your dreams. Feng Ling Er turned her head and looked away with a look of indifference. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang no longer talked nonsense. He looked at Ling Yunfei and said helplessly, you see, I don't have a solution now. You do what you want. Ling Yunfei suddenly frowned. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, Senior Sister Ling, you guessed right. Our destination is not Star Moon City, but the desert in the extreme north. What? Luo Qingzhu's beautiful face turned pale. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. He asked, you know that desert? Not only me, everyone in Star Moon City knows. After all, as a man, he had to be magnanimous and give in to women. But in the face of serious business, he would not compromise with any woman. Feng Ling Er had an illusion at this moment. She felt that the current Qin Feiyang seemed to be a different person. He had the aura of an overlord of heaven and earth. Especially his eyes, which were sharp and somewhat intimidating, made her have the idea of avoiding. How could this be? I'm actually afraid of him in my heart? Feng Ling Er found it hard to believe. Qin Fei Yang was only an 8-star martial master, but she was a 2-star martial grandmaster. There was a difference of a few small realms. It should be Qin Fei Yang who was afraid of her? She did not dare to continue looking at him, because the fear in her heart had become stronger. She was really afraid that she could not control herself and lowered her head to Qin Fei Yang. Her self-esteem, her pride, would not allow this to happen. So, she looked away and coldly snorted. This aunt is magnanimous and will not argue with you. In this invisible contest, Qin Fei Yang had won. He turned his gaze and looked at Luo Qingzhu, asking, "Is there a safer route from Xingyue City to the Desert of Death?" "Yes." Luo Qingzhu nodded. Although the Desert of Death was dangerous, many people liked to explore it. Of course, they only entered the periphery and did not dare to go deep. Therefore, over the years they slowly opened up a safe route. However, this safe route wasn't completely free of danger. Along the way, they would still encounter many fierce beasts. This depended on luck. If one was lucky, they would only encounter low-level fierce beasts. If one was unlucky and encountered a few martial grandmasters or even war king-level fierce beasts, their lives would be in danger. Qin Fei Yang laughed. "Then I'll have to trouble you to draw a map for me." This, Luo Qingzhu hesitated for a moment and nodded. "All right, wait a moment." Then he walked to the desk and drew with a brush. Not long after, a map appeared in front of him. "The place I marked with the red is the most dangerous place. You must be careful. In addition, there are 3 black dots. They are absolutely safe places. You can stop cultivating and adjust your state." Luo Qingzhu pointed at the map and introduced it to the 3 of them in detail. "You're really thoughtful," Qin Fei Yang muttered. Although the 3 safe spots might not be useful, he would remember Luo Qingzhu's good intentions. It was late at night. There was no moon in the sky and it was pitch black outside the city. It was obviously not suitable for traveling. The 3 of them stayed in the treasure pavilion. In the dead of night, Qin Fei Yang stood in front of the window and looked at the dark sky. He was like an old monk in meditation and did not move for a long time. But he did not know how long had passed. He sensed the image crystal in his Xueqi bag buzzing and trembling. When he took it out, the image crystal shone brightly and a shadow quickly condensed. It was Fatso. "Zhang Laoda, is it going well?" Fatso showed a standard smirk on his face. Qin Fei Yang nodded and said, "It's going well at the moment. Did anything major happen in Yen City these days?" Fatso thought for a while and said, "Nothing major, but 2 days ago, the eldest prince came to see you." Qin Fei Yang raised his eyebrows and asked, "Why is he looking for me?" "He wants you to help him refine 10 top-grade crimson fire-colored glass pills. It seems to be a betrothal gift for the Lin family. The medicinal materials are now with Fat Lord. Boss, do you want to help? If you don't, Fat Lord will return the medicinal materials to him tomorrow." "According to Fat Lord's intention, we won't help him. Who told him to steal your woman?" Fatso's face was full of disdain. Qin Fei Yang frowned and said, "I'll say it again. I only treat Lin Yi as a sister. She's a sister now. Who knows in the future?" Fatso smirked. Qin Fei Yang's face darkened and said coldly, "You should be glad that I'm not in Yen City now. Otherwise, even if you don't die, you will lose a layer of skin. Keep the medicinal materials for the 10 crimson fire-colored glass pills first. In addition, inform me immediately if there is news about the blood-killing token." "Roger." Fatso stood at attention. Qin Fei Yang rolled his eyes and asked, "Is there anything else?" "No, I wish you a safe journey. Pick up a few more girls. Let's go." As soon as Fatso finished speaking, the virtual image quickly disintegrated. Qin Fei Yang shook his head and laughed. He put away the image crystal, entered the castle, and continued to copy the return formula. The next day, early morning. It was drizzling, and the weather was getting colder and colder. After saying goodbye to Luo Qingzhu, the 3 walked straight to the city gate. Ling Yunfei whispered, "Did you notice that Luo Qingzhu wants to follow us?" Qin Fei Yang nodded. Last night, he had already noticed it, but he didn't point it out. Is anyone going to the Death Desert? If there is, let's go together. We can take care of each other on the way. Outside the city gate, there were more than a dozen people gathered. There were men and women, old and young, and their strength was quite good. Among them, a big man in black was shouting with all his strength. When the three passed by, the big man immediately stepped forward, grabbed Qin Feiyong's hand, and said with a smile, "Little brother, are you going to the Death Desert?" Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows, reached out and pushed the big man away, shook his head and said, "We're not going." "I'm sorry." The big man in black smiled apologetically, turned around and continued to shout. But there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. Two delicate boys and a delicate girl. Not to mention going to the Death Desert, they would probably be scared to death on the way. Feng Ling clearly saw this trace of disdain. Her seemingly thin and delicate body emitted a cold aura. "Let's go. There's nothing to fuss about," Qin Feiyong said lightly. Ling Yunfei said with a smile, "Senior sister, we agreed that we won't be willful." Humph. Feng Ling snorted coldly and took the lead to walk toward a small path. "Hey, isn't the small path they're going to the Death Desert?" The big man in black and the group were puzzled. An old man in green said lightly, "You're thinking too much. Even if you give them a few guts, they won't dare to go to the Death Desert." The others also nodded, and their faces were full of contempt. "I'll bear with it." Feng Ling clenched her jade-like hands, and her eyes were cold. If it wasn't for the agreement, she would have flipped out. The small path was only 1 meter wide, and it meandered all the way to the depths of the mountain. There were forests on both sides, covered with withered leaves, and the air was filled with a damp and rotten smell. The cold drizzle soon drenched the three of them. Qin Feiyong took out the map, looked at it carefully, and said, "The location of the first red's 10 miles away from here. Let's try to get there before dark." Whoosh! The three of them went at full speed, rushing toward the small path as fast as lightning. Along the way, they encountered many beasts, but they were basically the lowest-level beasts. After all, this area was still under the jurisdiction of Xingyue City, and those high-level beasts did not dare to approach. The sky was about to darken. The three of them finally arrived at the location of the first red. Under a big tree, they looked toward the small path in front. There was no one on the small path. On both sides, there were groups of trees, bushes, and weeds as tall as a person. However, after observing for a while, they did not see any danger. Ling Yunfei frowned. "Isn't Luo Qingzhu exaggerating? She's in Xingyue City all year round and is very familiar with this area. It's impossible for her to talk nonsense." Feng Ling said as she grabbed a fist-sized stone from the ground and threw it toward the small path in front. Throwing a stone to test the path. However, the stone fell to the ground and did not cause any changes. The surroundings were still dead silent. Chapter 154. Maybe we're lucky that there are no beasts nearby. Feng Ling smiled. But even she found it hard to believe her own words. "Let's go over quickly," Ling Yunfei urged. Even if there was danger, they could only brace themselves and charge through. They couldn't just go back home. "Wait." Qin Feiyong reached out to stop the two of them and smiled. "It's time to let it go now." The two of them were stunned. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and Wolf King immediately appeared out of thin air. "Ow! Brother Wolf is finally out." Earth. Tremble. At that moment, it howled towards the sky, its heroic spirit soaring to the sky. However, the next moment, rustling sounds came from the grass on both sides of the path ahead. The weeds and bushes also shook. Qin Feiyong and the other two noticed it immediately. When they looked over, their faces instantly turned pale. 2 red scorpions crawled out from the grass, their heads as big as wash basins. They were blood-red all over, as if they had just been soaked in blood, exuding an incomparable ferocious aura. Especially the poisonous stingers on their tails, which were almost as long as an adult's index finger. They were like 2 steel needles, shining with a terrifying bloody light. Bloodthirsty scorpion. Qin Feiyong opened his mouth with difficulty and swallowed his saliva. Feng Ling and Ling Yunfei also felt their hair stand on end. Aren't they just 2 little scorpions? What's the big deal? Wolf King glanced at the 3 of them in disdain and swaggered towards the 2 bloodthirsty scorpions. However, before it could get close, Its body stiffened. One by one, bloodthirsty scorpions kept crawling out from the grass. 2, 5, 10. They were densely packed and couldn't be counted in a short time. Qin Feiyong and the other two's expressions changed abruptly. They shouted at Wolf King in unison. "Come back quickly." Wolf King was about to cry. He didn't dare to move at all. His whole body was covered in cold sweat. His heart was also filled with regret. Why did he have to show off for no reason? But now, the bloodthirsty scorpions were glaring at it from the front. If it dared to make a move, it would definitely be beaten up. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice, "Don't be hasty, retreat slowly." "Slow your ass. Why didn't you say so earlier? They live in groups." Wolf King cursed in exasperation as he moved back inch by inch. If it had known, it wouldn't have come here to show off even if it was beaten to death. However, as soon as Wolf King moved, it was as if he had poked a hornet's nest. The bloodthirsty scorpions swarmed out and swarmed towards Wolf King. "Run!" Wolf King let out a low growl, turned around without hesitation, and bolted away. Qin Feiyong and the other two were also running away in fear. Wolf King roared, "The outside world is too dangerous. Little Qin Zi, quickly send Brother Wolf to the castle." "In your dreams." Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. Some time ago, it was clamoring to come out. Now that it was in danger, it wanted to hide inside. How could it be so easy? "Disloyal bastard, Brother Wolf will bite you to death." Wolf King roared angrily. When he looked back, he was so scared that he almost peed. Those bloodthirsty scorpions were not slower than him at all. Distance. They were quickly closing in. "Help Brother Wolf." Wolf King hurriedly asked for help. Feng Ling Er was a 2-star martial grandmaster. Although she did not have any auxiliary martial arts techniques, she was undoubtedly the fastest. Although Qin Feiyong and Feng Ling Er were 8-star martial masters, they had mastered perfect auxiliary martial arts techniques. Except for Wolf King. Although it was comparable to a 9-star martial master, its speed could not keep up. Qin Feiyong turned his head and his eyes suddenly darkened. He decisively took out the Chong Shui, turned around, and ran towards Wolf King. "Little Qin Zi, you are loyal." Wolf King was overjoyed. Whoosh! But in the next moment, the group of bloodthirsty scorpions behind him raised their tails and spat out blood-red liquid. Like arrows, they shot towards Wolf King. Damn it, don't scorpions only sting people? Why do they spit venom? Wolf King was so scared that he roared again and again. "Who told you that they only sting people?" Qin Feiyong was speechless. Ordinary scorpions only knew how to sting people. But were these scorpions ordinary? They were more terrifying than ordinary beasts. Whoosh! Wolf King suddenly turned around and jumped into the forest next to him. Qin Feiyong's expression changed drastically and he roared, "Come out quickly!" But as soon as Wolf King jumped into the forest, the venom rushed towards him. Damn it! Qin Feiyong cursed and also jumped into the grass next to him. He had narrowly escaped a calamity. And the venom shot to the ground, making a sizzling sound. In the blink of an eye, a face-sized pit appeared. And there was also a scarlet blood mist rising from the pit. This blood mist drifted in the air. It actually carried a faint fragrance. However, wherever this blood mist shrouded, whether it was flowers, grass, or trees, they withered and rotted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Obviously, this blood mist also contained a strong poison. Qin Feiyong got up, covered his nose first, and looked towards the front of the path. Those bloodthirsty scorpions did not stop. Like a sea of blood, they surged over, making people's hair stand on end. Feng Ling Er, Ling Yunfei, you guys run. When I find Wolf King, I will meet you guys. Qin Feiyong roared and went into the forest without looking back, looking for Wolf King. Extremely annoyed. This damn white-eyed wolf. Didn't he know that the forest was more dangerous than the path? Hearing Qin Feiyong's roar, Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er immediately turned around and fled along the path. And the scorpions did not chase after them. Instead, they rushed into the forest and swarmed towards Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong's face was gloomy to the extreme. As he ran, he scanned the forest. The sky was getting darker and darker. If he did not leave the forest, he was afraid that he would not only face the scorpions, but also other birds and beasts. Ow! Roar! Suddenly, From the left, there was a wolf howl and a beast roar. Qin Feiyong slammed on the brakes, turned around and sped away. Crack! Rustle! Behind. The bloodthirsty scorpions were like a swarm of locusts. Wherever they passed, they were unstoppable. Patches of weeds and shrubs fell, leaving a mess. Fortunately, the forest was dense and helped Qin Feiyong block the venom. Otherwise, he would not even have bones left now. After galloping for about 10 breaths, he came to a small hillside. At the bottom of the hillside, there was a small river. The water was very muddy. And on the riverbank, Wolf King was crazily fighting with a fierce crocodile. When Qin Feiyong saw the appearance of the fierce crocodile, his face instantly paled. It was actually a saw-toothed crocodile. Wolf King roared, "Little Tianzi, come down and help." Qin Feiyong dashed down like an arrow. Borrowing the force of his descent, he clenched his 5 fingers tightly and his true energy surged as he threw a punch at the Wolf King. That's right. The target of the attack was Wolf King. Seeing that the fist was about to hit Wolf King suddenly dodged to the side. Rushing thunder-killing fist. At the same time, Qin Feiyong growled and punched the head of the saw-toothed crocodile. Roar! Accompanied by a painful scream, the head of the saw-toothed crocodile burst open on the spot. Bang! Its huge body also fell to the ground. Wolf King said with lingering fear, "Fortunately, you came in time. Otherwise, Brother Wolf would be dead." Let's go! Last time, near Black Bear City, Ling Yunfei and I killed a saw-toothed crocodile. In the end, we alarmed the entire group of crocodiles. I'm afraid this time is no exception. Qin Feiyong shouted in a low voice. Roar! However, it was too late. Saw-toothed crocodiles continued to appear from the forest on both sides and the river in front. The small ones were 5 or 6 meters long. The big ones were more than 10 meters long. There were even 2 saw-toothed crocodiles that were more than 20 meters long behind the crocodiles on both sides. Those bloody mouths and dense fangs made the man and wolf's faces turn pale. Look behind. The bloodthirsty scorpions rushed down from the hillside like a blood-colored waterfall, making people shudder. You really jinxed it. Wolf King said angrily. If it weren't for you running into the forest, would we be in such a situation? Qin Feiyong said angrily. If Brother Wolf didn't run into the forest, he would have been drowned by the venom. I'm afraid not even a strand of hair is left now. Wolf King roared. All right. Stop talking nonsense. I have an idea. Qin Feiyong said impatiently, a cold light flashing in his eyes. What idea? Wolf King was surprised and puzzled. Let them kill each other. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice. The group of crocodiles and scorpions were ferocious as they pounced on the man and wolf. In the blink of an eye, Qin Feiyong grabbed Wolf King and entered the castle. Roar! Hiss! The pitch-black group of crocodiles and the blood-red scorpions, like 2 torrents, collided violently. A cruel battle immediately unfolded. Hee, you're really smart. Wolf King laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at it, took out the image crystal, and quickly activated it. At the same time, somewhere on the path, Ling Yunfei, who was running wildly, suddenly stopped. What are you doing? Feng Ling was puzzled. It should be Qin Feiyong who sent me a message. Ling Yunfei took out the image crystal, and it shone brightly. Qin Feiyong's shadow quickly appeared. Ling Yunfei asked, Where are you? Qin Feiyong said, Don't worry about where I am first. I've stalled the scorpions. Hurry back. I'll meet up with you later. As soon as he finished speaking, the shadow disappeared. Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling looked at each other. Was this guy really that capable? He could even stall the scorpions? Ling Yunfei put away the image crystal and said, Senior sister, he won't lie to us. Let's go. The 2 of them turned back. Soon, they arrived at the place where the scorpions appeared. They took a few tentative steps forward. As expected, there were no bloodthirsty scorpions. Therefore, the 2 of them ran forward boldly with confidence. Inside the castle, a man and a wolf were focused, carefully listening to the movements outside. Half an hour later, only then did the commotion gradually disappear. Wolf King asked, Do you think they were all wiped out? How would I know? You stay here first. I'll go out and take a look. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he appeared in his original position. But half an hour later, the sky was completely dark. He couldn't see his fingers or see anything. He could only smell the pungent smell of blood. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind. Qin Feiyong's body and mind tightened, and he immediately entered the castle. "How is it?" Wolf King asked. "I can't see." Chapter 155. Are the bloodthirsty scorpions so fierce? Wolf King was shocked. "Of course, otherwise I wouldn't have run away as soon as I saw them." Qin Feiyong nodded, feeling quite distressed. If only he had a pair of wolf eyes, he would be able to see both day and night. But this was an extravagant hope. He looked down at Wolf King and said in a deep voice, "It's very dangerous on the path at night. We have to rush to meet up with Ling Yunfei and the others as soon as possible. We can only rely on you now." "You want to ride on Brother Wolf's back again?" Wolf King looked at him unkindly. Qin Feiyong did not waste any more words and directly sat on it. With a thought, he left the castle. Whoosh! As soon as he appeared, a few ear-piercing sounds could be heard. Fa! Wolf King quickly dodged to the side and ran towards the hill without looking back. "What's the situation?" Qin Feiyong asked. Wolf King said, "There are still 5 active bloodthirsty scorpions chasing after us." Qin Feiyong's heart sank. He tightened his grip on the Shui and said, "You can't outrun them. Find a chance to kill them. Now is the time to test our tacit understanding." "Can you be more reliable?" Wolf King was indignant. Although it could see, Qin Feiyong couldn't, right? How could he fight back? Qin Feiyong said, "Okay, stop complaining. Find a chance. I really don't know if it's because of my previous life. What did Brother Wolf owe you? Now you're tormenting me like this." Wolf King jumped a few times and landed on the hill. The 5 bloodthirsty scorpions also jumped up and pounced towards the man and wolf. "Good chance." Wolf King's eyes lit up and shouted, "To the left." Qin Feiyong did not hesitate and suddenly swung out the Shui. At the same time, Wolf King squatted down, and 2 bloodthirsty scorpions were directly cut in half by the Shui. Behind, following closely, Wolf King growled again. Qin Feiyong turned his arm and swung it back. Wolf King also jumped up, and 2 more bloodthirsty scorpions were cut into pieces. "Up there!" Wolf King roared again. Qin Feiyong swung his saber. The Wolf King moved a few inches to the left and struck the bloodthirsty scorpion's heart. In just the blink of an eye, he had killed 5 bloodthirsty scorpions. It seemed simple, but in reality, it was extremely difficult. Because every time Qin Feiyong swung his saber, he was swinging it blindly. It was all thanks to Wolf King's cooperation. For the first time Wolf King squatted. The second time, Wolf King jumped up. The third time, Wolf King moved to the left. It was adjusting its position. Furthermore, it had to be done very precisely, without the slightest error. Only in this way could Shui kill the bloodthirsty scorpion in one blow. Otherwise, Qin Feiyong wouldn't have been able to kill those 5 bloodthirsty scorpions. Of course, the most important thing was the tacit understanding. If the tacit understanding was slightly worse, they might lose their lives. Phew! Qin Feiyong exhaled and asked, "Is there anything else?" "No." Wolf King stood on the hillside and turned around to look below. The forest and river were beyond recognition, and corpses were everywhere. Blood dyed the ground red and the river water soaked. The scene was extremely bloody. Although Brother Wolf doesn't want to admit it, we do have a tacit understanding. The Wolf King said indifferently, then turned around and ran towards the small path. Along the way, they encountered many ferocious beasts. A man and a wolf cooperated seamlessly and dealt with them one by one. But even so, they suffered different degrees of injuries. After returning to the path, Wolf King led Qin Feiyong and chased after Ling Yunfei and Shui. Not long after, Wolf King saw the corpses of ferocious beasts on the path. Blood mixed with the rain and dyed the ground red. Wolf King said, "Little Qin Zi, I have a bad feeling." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "Can't you smell the smell of blood in the air?" Wolf King said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyong sniffed hard and his expression changed. There was indeed the smell of blood. Wolf King said, "There are many corpses of ferocious beasts on the path. They might have been killed by Ling Yunfei and Chang Shui." The mood of the man and wolf became heavy. There was no moonlight. There was no way to make torches on a rainy day. Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er were also blind. They could only rely on their ears to listen. And a large number of ferocious beasts appeared on the path at night. Even if they could distinguish the location by listening, they would be in danger. Haha, I actually found a good treasure. After running for a while, Wolf King suddenly laughed. What is it? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Wolf King said, "There is an black tongue tree here." Really? Qin Feiyong was overjoyed. The black tongue tree itself was not valuable, but the bark of the black tongue tree contained rich oil and could be made into torches. Moreover, as long as it was not soaked in water, it would not go out. Wolf King sighed again. We were happy for nothing. The bark has been stripped off, and the traces are still new. Qin Feiyong's veins bulged and he really wanted to slap him. The traces were new? Could it be that Ling Yunfei and Chang Shui pulled them out? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, "Quickly take out your full speed." With a torch, although they could see the surroundings clearly, there was also a fatal drawback. Because the torch would attract the nearby ferocious beasts. Wolf King ran at full speed, mud splashing everywhere. Hundreds of breaths later, a little fire suddenly appeared in front of them. Is it them? A man and a wolf approached quickly with a nervous heart. When they got closer, Qin Feiyong discovered that there were actually more than 20 figures. Obviously, it couldn't be Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er. Wolf King suddenly said, "Aya, not good." Brother Wolf ignored the many footprints on the ground. "Do you believe that I won't slap you?" Qin Feiyong said angrily. To be able to ignore such important information, it was really not reliable at all. When they were more than 50 meters away from the fire, Qin Feiyong sent Wolf King to the castle. Then he hid Chang Shui in his sleeve and ran over quickly. Hearing the footsteps, the 20 or so people turned to look at Qin Feiyong at the same time. It's them? Qin Feiyong frowned. Under the light of the fire, many familiar faces could be seen. It was the black-clothed man and others who invited him to team up outside the city in the morning. Those people also saw Qin Feiyong's true face. It's you. Didn't you say that you won't go to the Death Desert? Why are you here? You actually came here alone to smear my name. Aren't you a little too bold? 3 big men stood up and looked at Qin Feiyong unkindly. Qin Feiyong stood 5 meters away, looking at the black-clothed man and others. However, he suddenly noticed that there were 2 people lying on the ground behind these people. Although their faces were blocked, he knew from their clothes that they were Feng Ling Er and Ling Yunfei. What happened to them? Qin Feiyong frowned. The black-clothed man sneered. They are seriously injured. I'm afraid they can't even stand up now. Are you the ones who hurt them? Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with cold light. An old man in green shook his head and said, "It's true that good people don't have good karma. We saved them. If it weren't for them, they would have been eaten by the beasts." Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, "Then I thank you on behalf of them. Can you let me pass?" "Yes, get out of the way." The old man in green waved his hand and several people standing in the middle of the road retreated to the side. At that moment, Qin Feiyong clearly saw the situation of Feng Ling Er and Chang Shui. The 2 of them were lying on the ground, unconscious. Their faces were as pale as paper and their bodies were full of injuries. There were even a few claw marks that were so deep that bones could be seen. In the grass next to the 2 of them, there were 2 beasts lying. There was a fist-sized bloody hole in their heads. Blood was gushing out. They were already dead. Qin Feiyong hurriedly walked over. However, the black-clothed man suddenly stood in front of him and sneered, "If you want to see them, hand over the Chenkuan bag first." At the same time, the others rushed forward and surrounded Qin Feiyong in the middle. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong narrowed his eyes and glanced at them one by one. Everyone's face was filled with greed. Isn't it obvious? The black-clothed man shrugged his shoulders and said with a face full of ridicule, "If you had accepted my invitation in the morning and traveled with us, wouldn't everything have been fine?" Qin Feiyong said, "People of different paths can't work together." Are you implying that we are villains? The black-clothed man's face sank. Qin Feiyong said, "Whether you are a villain or not, You know it in your heart. I advise you to get out of the way immediately. Otherwise, when we return to Xingyue City, it will be your death date. Hehe. We already know that the three of you are disciples of the Martial Emperor Holv. But if you die here, I bet the Martial Emperor Hall won't be able to find out who did it. So, you better be smart and hand over the Chenkuan bag. If that's the case, we can consider letting you live. The old man in azure clothes sneered. If I didn't get rid of those bloodthirsty scorpions, would you be able to make it here alive? But now, not only did you not say thank you, you even took our Chenkuan bag. You're worse than a dog. At least a dog knows how to repay kindness. Qin Feiyang's face sank. You. Haha, are you talking in your sleep? You think you can get rid of the bloodthirsty scorpions with your strength? The group laughed in disdain. The black-clothed man's eyes turned cold as he shouted, "Cut the crap. Hand over the Chenkuan bag or don't blame me for being impolite." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Sure, I can give you the Chenkuan bag, but I have to confirm whether they're dead or not." The black-clothed man said, "Hand over the Chenkuan bag, and I'll let you see them." Qin Feiyang said, "What if I hand it over and you don't want to admit it? I don't trust you anyway." "Do you think you have a choice?" The black-clothed man waved his hand, and the others immediately approached Qin Feiyang step by step. Qin Feiyang hurriedly stretched out his hand. Fine, I'll give it to you. That's a wise choice. Hand it over." The black-clothed man smiled, took a step forward, and stretched out his hand in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced around. There was only the black-clothed man in front of him. Beside him was the old man in azure clothes and a middle-aged woman. As long as he took the black-clothed man by surprise and tore open a gap, he would be able to quickly rescue Ling Yunfei and Qin Feiyang. However, since these people were taking his Chenkuan bag, it meant that Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er's Chenkuan bags had already been taken by them. Feng Ling Er's Chenkuan bag still contained a top-grade red fire-color glass pill, so he couldn't let these people take advantage of it. It's too dangerous here. Let's go to a safer place first. The middle-aged woman nodded and said, "That's right. They will pass by the safe place sooner or later. We will wait for them at the safe place." "All right, let's go." Wang Gang grabbed his broken arm and lowered his head as he walked forward. His eyes were extremely dark and fierce. "Everyone, quickly follow. Pay attention to the movements around you." The green-clothed old man called out and caught up with Wang Gang. He comforted him. "Don't worry, those two are disciples of the Martial Imperial Palace. There must be a myriad spirit pill in their Chenkuan bag. Even if there isn't one, I will send someone back to Star Moon City to buy one for you tomorrow morning." Wang Gang nodded. The myriad spirit pill could be used to reconnect broken limbs. And once it was healed, there would be no sequelae. At the same time, inside the castle, Feng Ling Er and Ling Yunfei were lying quietly on the ground. Qin Feiyang had already given them the best healing pills. Their complexions and injuries were slowly recovering. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King stood at the side, listening to the movements outside. Their eyes flashed with strong killing intent. Wolf King said, "They have left. What are your plans? Do you still remember how we hunted down the people of the Black Demon stronghold in Iron Bull Town?" Qin Feiyang licked his lips and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. "Of course I remember." Wolf King nodded. "At that time, we were still martial artists and didn't have the castle. We could wipe out the Black Demon stronghold, let alone now." Qin Feiyang sneered. "It's good to have confidence, but Brother Wolf has to remind you that there was a moon at that time and you could see it. And now you can't see it. This is the first problem. The second problem is that the beasts here are much stronger than the ones in Iron Bull Town. While hunting them, we have to face the ambush of the beasts. I'm afraid it's not good." Wolf King was somewhat worried. Qin Feiyang fell silent. Wolf King's concerns were not unreasonable. It would be best to have a foolproof plan. "Let's go out first." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and left the castle with Wolf King. They followed behind the group of people, maintaining a distance of 40 to 50 meters. Those people would also turn their heads from time to time, looking back vigilantly. But as long as Wolf King closed his eyes in time, those people would not be able to detect them hiding in the darkness. Moreover, with that group of people clearing the way in front, They did not have to worry about being ambushed by the beasts. Hundreds of breaths passed. Wolf King asked, "Little Qin Zi, have you thought of a way?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong whispered a few words in Wolf King's ear. "Will it work?" Wolf King questioned. "As long as you cooperate well, you will definitely be able to get rid of them one by one." Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. "Okay." Wolf King nodded. All of a sudden, it raised its head and howled, resounding through the rainy night and lingering for a long time. "There's a wolf." The faces of Wang Gang and the others suddenly changed. They hurriedly stopped, turned around, and looked back. Immediately, they saw a pair of green eyes, like two clusters of ghost fire, which made them shudder with fear. "It's really a wolf." They panicked at once. Wolves were cunning and cold-blooded. Once targeted by a wolf, even if they did not die, they would lose a layer of skin. "What should we do?" Everyone looked at the man in black and the old man in cyan. The old man in cyan whispered, "Don't panic. There is only one wolf now. It will definitely not dare to come over when it sees so many of us. Let's go quickly. Don't provoke it." The group of people rushed forward back to back. However, they did not notice that there was a person sitting on the back of the wolf. "Go follow it," Qin Feiyong whispered. The Wolf King took a step forward and sprinted madly. "Oh no, it's coming!" The middle-aged woman shouted, her face full of panic. "Run!" The old man in cyan shouted in a low voice. The group of people immediately ran wildly. However, in front of them, there would be a fierce beast jumping out from time to block their way, greatly reducing their speed. The old man in cyan was extremely annoyed and said angrily, "Don't run, we'll wait for it here. I want to see if it dares to come over." More than 20 people stayed in place and were vigilant. "Oh well!" Wolf King howled again. Everyone's body and mind tightened. For such a ferocious creature like a wolf, there was a natural fear in the hearts of human beings. But suddenly, that pair of green eyes disappeared. "Is it gone?" Everyone was surprised. The old man in cyan sneered, "No matter how cold-blooded it is still afraid of death. It must have left." But before they could breathe a sigh of relief, that pair of green eyes appeared again. "Bastard! It's obvious that it has targeted us. There may even be a pack of wolves hiding nearby." The man in black roared. His face was very ugly. Hearing this, everyone panicked again. Their bodies and minds were shrouded in fear. The old man in cyan gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "We can't continue like this. You three go and take a look. If there's really only one, get rid of it as soon as possible." He pointed at the 3 middle-aged men with a commanding tone. "Us!" The faces of the 3 men instantly turned green. The old man in cyan shouted, "Go quickly, or I'll leave you here to fend for yourselves." The 3 men's bodies trembled, holding a torch, and walked step by step towards the man and the wolf. The torch was made of the bark of the black-tongue tree. Under the illumination of the fire, it could be clearly seen that there were bean-sized beads of sweat on their foreheads. They were sweating in such a cold day, which showed how nervous they were at the moment. "Are they finally here?" Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He let Wolf King do this, in fact, to bluff, deliberately mystify, to lure those people to come to his door. Then, the man and the wolf separated and lurked in the grass beside the path. Disappeared again? The 3 men were stunned, and then they were wild with joy and turned to look at the old man in cyan. As if to ask, since they disappeared, was there no need to go over? "Continue!" The old man in cyan shouted. The 3 men's faces stiffened, and they had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue to walk. Soon, they came to the ambush point of Qin Feiyong and Wolf King. Glancing around, one of them smiled and said, "I don't see any wolves, they must have left, let's hurry over." The other 2 nodded. However, just as they turned around, a man and a wolf suddenly pounced out from the grass. Qin Feiyong's target was the man with the torch, Chang Shui, showing off his sharpness. He easily cut off the man's neck. At the same time, Qin Feiyong grabbed the torch and threw it into the forest behind. The place was instantly plunged into darkness. "Ah!" Accompanied by a shrill scream, Wolf King also bit off a man's throat. "Come and save me." There was only one man left. He grabbed a broadsword and waved it crazily in the dark, while asking the black-clothed man and the others for help. "What should we do?" The people in the distance panicked. Ah! The next moment, another cry of agony rang out. They knew that the three men were dead. Everything happened so fast that they were not mentally prepared at all. "Be quiet," the black-clothed man shouted, his face as calm as water. Everyone immediately shut their mouths and stared at the pair of green eyes in the distance, their hearts trembling. "Did you notice that two shadows just appeared?" The old man in cyan said in a deep voice. The middle-aged woman nodded and said, "There are indeed two shadows. It seems that there is not only one wolf but two." Although Qin Feiyang had immediately thrown away his torch, the majority of the people were still able to catch sight of his shadow. But they did not see it clearly. So they thought that there was another wolf. "No, if there are really two wolves, shouldn't there be two pairs of eyes?" someone said. The old man in cyan said, "Wolves are cunning by nature. The other wolf may have been closing its eyes or squinting its eyes in order to confuse us and make us careless." Hearing this, the group of people could be said to be panicking to the extreme, completely at a loss. Why were they so unlucky to encounter such a cunning beast? What should they do now? Chapter 157. Of course. This kind of result was also what Qin Feiyang wanted. Only when the other party panicked would he have the chance to eliminate them one by one. Wolf King walked in front of Qin Feiyang and asked, "What do we do next?" Qin Feiyang sat on Wolf King's back and sneered, "Continue to walk towards them. I want them to be scared out of their wits. Let them taste the taste of despair." Heh. Wolf King laughed sinisterly and walked over step by step. "It's here again. Wang Gang, old he, what should we do now?" The middle-aged woman and the others panicked and looked at the black-clothed man and the green-clothed old man. To be honest, the two of them didn't have any idea now. Wang Gang said in a deep voice, "Old he, why don't you personally bring people over and get rid of them? Why don't you go?" The green-clothed old man sneered. Wang Gang said angrily, "If my arm wasn't broken, I would have gone long ago. Would I still be here talking to you?" The middle-aged woman frowned. "Old he, other than Wang Gang, you are the strongest here. You can't stay out of this." "Yeah, if we don't get rid of them as soon as possible, I'm afraid we won't have a peaceful journey. Old he, help us please." The others also cupped their hands and pleaded. The green-clothed old man glanced at everyone, his eyes flickering. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Which one of you will go with me?" Now he had to go. Because if he didn't go, he would definitely be ostracized by everyone and even be kicked out of the team. Once he was alone in this dangerous forest, even if he was strong, he didn't have the confidence to walk to the desert of death alive. "Me. And me." 5 strong men walked out, looking as if they were going to die for justice. The green-clothed old man glanced at the 5 of them, pointed to 3 of them and said, "The 3 of you walk in front of me, the 2 of you on the left and the other on the right." The 5 of them frowned. This arrangement was obviously to use them as shields. The green-clothed old man said, "If you don't do as I say, I won't go. Everyone will wait for death together." Wang Gang raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Whatever old he says, you guys do it." The 5 of them exchanged glances. Regret could be clearly seen on his face. However, it was already too late for regrets. He could only brace himself and continue. Wolf King's pupils contracted, and he said, "Not good. There are actually 6 people coming over." Qin Feiyang said, "Don't panic. Although there are 6 of them, the only one who can truly pose a threat to us is that old bastard in green. As long as we assassinate him first, the other 5 are nothing to worry about." Without a doubt, the green-robed old man was definitely a martial ancestor, but he did not know exactly how many stars he had. As for the 5 burly men, their auras were similar to his. They were either 8-star or 9-star martial masters. With his current strength, even if it was a head-on confrontation, he was confident that he could easily get rid of the 5 of them. There's a shield in front of him, and there's also a shield on his left and right. How can I assassinate him? The Wolf King stopped and sized up the 6 people who were approaching him. His gaze was solemn. "Then I'll assassinate him from behind." The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth curled up into a cold smile. "Behind?" Wolf King was taken aback, and said, "How do you go behind him?" "Simple. Don't forget, we have the castle." Qin Feiyang said as he jumped down from Wolf King's back, walked forward 5 meters, turned around, looked into Wolf King's eyes, and said with a smile, "Do you understand now?" Wolf King suddenly understood. As long as Qin Feiyong hid in the castle and waited for the 6 people to come over, Qin Feiyong would come out of the castle and naturally be behind them. In other words, the 5 meters between them was equivalent to a fatal trap. No. Wolf King quivered, angrily stared at Qin Feiyong, and said, "You bastard, you actually used brother Qin Feiyong as bait again. There's no other way, because only by standing there motionless can you lure the 6 people into this trap." Qin Feiyong grinned, directly entered the castle, and carefully listened to the sound of footsteps. "Bastard, just you wait. Brother Wolf will make your butt bloom." Wolf King secretly muttered, bared his teeth, and fiercely stared at the 6 people. The 6 people were getting closer and closer. When they were 10 meters away, the 6 people finally saw Wolf King. Why is there only one wolf? The 5 strong men instinctively stopped, vigilantly looking behind Wolf King, as well as the grass on both sides. One of them nervously said, "Old he, the other wolf must be hiding nearby. What do we do now?" The old man in green secretly sneered, and angrily said, "Nonsense, of course we continue to get closer." With a shield, of course he was not afraid. But the 5 strong men's feet seemed to be rooted, and they could not move half a step. The old man in green glanced at Wolf King, his eyes flashing with killing intent, and whispered to the 5 people, "Hurry up, don't let it escape. If the other wolf sneaks out to attack, dodge, I'll kill it with a palm strike." The 5 strong men took a step forward again, inching towards Wolf King bit by bit. 9 meters. 8 meters. 7 meters. 6 meters. 5 meters. The castle was right here. The 6 people took another step and stepped into the trap. "Awoo!" Accompanied by a wolf howl, Wolf King revealed his ferocious nature and pounced towards the 6 people. "Kill!" The old man in green shouted. The 3 strong men in front immediately raised their weapons and slashed towards Wolf King. The 2 strong men on the left and right each held a torch, staring at the grass in front of them to prevent the other wolf from sneaking an attack. The old man in green also swept his eyes back and forth, his face full of vigilance. In the distance, Wang Gang and the others looked at the situation with smiles on their faces. There should be no problem now, right? But the next moment, their gazes focused. Behind the old man in green, a person actually appeared out of thin air. Just like a ghost, there was no sign at all. The back view is so familiar. It's him. That disciple of the martial imperial palace. The group of people turned pale with fright, as if they had seen a ghost. Wang Gang hurriedly shouted, "Old he, be careful behind you." "Behind me?" When the old man in green heard the roar, he frowned slightly and looked back in confusion. Immediately, a face entered his line of sight. Close at hand. There was a bright smile on his face. However, this smile, in the eyes of the old man in green, was simply the smile of a devil, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end in an instant. He instinctively struck out with his palm. But before he could raise his arm, he felt a pain in his heart. He instinctively lowered his head to look. He saw a snow-white dagger piercing into his heart. Fresh blood spurted out. Following closely, an incomparable pain, like waves of the sea, crazily attacked every nerve in his body. At that moment, he couldn't help but scream miserably. Heart-wrenching. Old he. The expressions of the 2 brawny men on the left and right changed drastically. Without hesitation, they raised their torches and threw them at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong glanced at the 2 of them, pulled out Xueqi, and kicked the old man in green in the chest. With the help of this force, he retreated several meters away. The old man in green was sent flying by a kick. With a bang, he fell to the ground. "Old he. How are you? I have a healing pill here, quickly take it." The 2 brawny men hurriedly ran over, took out healing pills, and stuffed them into the old man's mouth. But just now, Xueqi had already pierced through his heart. No matter how many healing pills there were, it was useless. His head tilted and he died on the spot. At the same time, another 3 screams rang out. It turned out that the other 3 brawny men had their throats bitten by the Wolf King, and they died. However, the Wolf King's back also suffered a cut, so deep that the bone could be seen. Bang! The 3 corpses fell to the ground, and mud splattered everywhere. The Wolf King walked over step by step and stood on top of the 3 corpses. Like a king, it looked coldly at the 2 brawny men beside the old man in green. There was a piece of flesh in its mouth. Its fangs were also dripping with blood, and it looked extremely ferocious. Qin Feiyong glanced at the knife wound on the Wolf King's body. His eyes flashed with a frightening light, and he said in an awe-inspiring manner, "If I were you, I would have chosen to run away from the beginning. No, I deserve to die. I shouldn't have provoked you. I'll kowtow to you. Please don't kill me." The 2 brawny men trembled and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. "Go to hell and repent." Qin Feiyong's expression was extremely cold. He rushed forward and the cold light of Chong Shui burst out, instantly sinking into the glabella of one of them. At the same time, the Wolf King also jumped up, opened its bloody mouth, and bit the head of the other person. With a crunch, the head was bitten off. Bang! The 2 men fell to the ground one after another, dead. The Wolf King raised its head, looked at Wang Gang and the others in the distance, and spat out the bloody head. Seeing this bloody scene, Wang Gang and the others trembled and felt cold all over. A few of them were so scared that they were paralyzed on the spot, and a pungent smell came from their crotch. Qin Feiyong searched the body of the old man in green for a moment, got up and walked to the Wolf King's side. He shook his head and said, "Ling Yunfei's Chenkuan bag is not on him." The Wolf King sneered. "Then it must be on that brawny man." Qin Feiyong grabbed a torch and said with a smile, "Let's go and meet them head-on." The man and the wolf walked over unhurriedly. "Wang Gang, what should we do now? Quickly think of a way." Seeing this, the remaining dozen people looked at Wang Gang, their hearts burning with anxiety. Even old he, who was a martial arts grandmaster, was easily killed by the man and the wolf, let alone them. Wang Gang was their only pillar of support now. But this pillar of support was also terrified at this moment. If it was a head-on fight, he was not afraid at all. But it was obvious that the man and the wolf did not intend to fight him head-on. The man-wolf combination, could it be them? Suddenly, he thought of a name that everyone in the county of Yen knew, Qin Feiyong. But it was not right. Qin Feiyong's arrest warrant was still posted at the city gate. The portrait and the person in front of him were 2 completely different people. Whoosh! Whether it was Qin Feiyong or not, the best plan was to run. He turned around without hesitation and fled crazily. Now that he had fled, the middle-aged woman and her group had lost their backbone and were at a loss of what to do. "What are you waiting for? Run!" the middle-aged woman shouted anxiously. In an instant, Chapter 158. They ran away? 1 man and 1 wolf were stunned. They thought that those people would stay and have a good fight with them. After all, there were more than a dozen of them. What was there to be afraid of? But the result was that they ran away without a fight. Were they that scary? Wolf King said proudly, "Brother Wolf is so awesome. I didn't even make a move and they were scared witless." "It's not that you're awesome, it's that you're too shameless." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. He had never seen such a narcissistic guy. Wolf King said disdainfully, "Brother Wolf knows that you're jealous, so I'm not angry at all." "I'm jealous?" Qin Feiyong was really speechless. He was too lazy to talk nonsense and directly sent Wolf King into the castle. Then, he used the smoke-gathering steps and chased after the middle-aged woman and the others. "He's chasing us. So fast. Almost 4 times faster than me." More than a dozen people's faces turned pale. Fear and despair drowned them like a tide. "I can't run anymore." A young man in black collapsed on the ground, his body trembling and at a loss. The others didn't care about him. This team was temporarily formed. Everyone had their own little thoughts. Unity was simply a joke. In the face of a disaster, everyone flew away. The young man in black turned his head with difficulty and looked at Qin Feiyong, who was rushing over. He begged, "This brother, no, this lord, I was also forced, please spare my life." Qin Feiyong nodded. "So easy to talk to?" The young man in black was stunned and wild with joy. However, the next moment, Qin Feiyong swept past him. Chong Shui flashed and the head of the young man in black was directly removed. A bowl-sized wound and blood spurted several meters high. "He's a devil. He kills people without blinking. Quick, 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 run."
The middle-aged woman and the others in front were scared out of their wits.
Do you remember what I said at that time?
Soon you will know who you have offended.
I want all of you to be in complete despair. Qin Feiyong's ferocious nature erupted. Using the shifting smoke steps, he rapidly chased after them like a shooting star.
With a wave of his saber, he chopped off another person's head. My lord, we were blind. I'll be your slave, I'll serve you tea. I beg you to be magnanimous and let me live.
I don't want to die. The dozen or so people begged as they fled. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear to him. With the Chong Shui in his hand, he crazily harvested heads one after another. The remaining people were scared out of their wits. 2 of them fled into the forest in a panic. But not long after, screams could be heard. Obviously, they were killed by the ferocious beasts in the forest. Fresh blood dyed the small path red. The smell of blood was pungent. Heads rolled in the mud one after another. Their eyes were wide open, filled with fear and despair before death. Little bastard, don't go too far. The middle-aged woman roared. Other than Wang Gang, she was the only one who was still alive. I'm going too far? At that time, I clearly advised you not to provoke me, but you didn't believe me. But now, you can't blame me for being ruthless. Qin Feiyong was covered in blood. He was like a blood man, emitting an incomparable murderous aura. Yes, this was his most terrifying side. He would not let go of anyone who dared to touch him. I'll fight it out with you. Seeing Qin Feiyong getting closer and closer, the middle-aged woman suddenly turned around and slapped at Qin Feiyong. True qi surged in her palm. This was a kind of martial skill. But it was only a mid-tier martial skill. Qin Feiyong's eyes were full of disdain. He also slapped out with a palm, accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder, and sent the middle-aged woman flying. Bang! Puff! The middle-aged woman crashed to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. In an instant, her face was full of despair. Who are you? She looked at Qin Feiyong in horror. Perfect killing martial skill. Perfect auxiliary martial skill. There was also a white wolf beside him. And his whereabouts were strange. He came and went without a trace. How could there be such a perverted person in the world? You want to know so much? Well, I'll tell you. I'm Qin Feiyong that you're all looking for. Qin Feiyong said. What? The middle-aged woman's body trembled violently. Qin Feiyong stepped in front of her. Chong Shui spun, and suddenly blood burst out. A head fell to the ground. There's only one left. He grabbed Chong Shui and chased after Wang Gang without looking back. Behind him, there was a ground full of broken limbs. It was like a Jura hell. On the way, Qin Feiyong encountered many dead beasts. Basically, they were killed in one move, and their wounds were still bleeding. Obviously, they were killed by Wang Gang. This meant that, although Wang Gang's speed was faster than Qin Feiyong, it was not difficult for Qin Feiyong to catch up with him because of the beasts blocking the way. However, occasionally, there would be beasts jumping out and blocking in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong called out Wolf King. With the cooperation of a man and a wolf, coupled with the invincible Chong Shui, they were unimpeded along the way. Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er had also woken up and were recuperating in the castle. After chasing for almost an hour, they finally saw Wang Gang on the small path ahead. However, Wang Gang's strength had obviously increased a lot. A 2-star martial grandmaster level beast was actually killed by him with one punch. Even his severed arm had been restored to its original state. Moreover, further away, there was a bonfire. They could vaguely see more than a dozen figures around the bonfire. This is not good. A man and a wolf stopped and looked at Wang Gang and the people around the bonfire. They had a premonition of uneasiness in their hearts. Qin Feiyong took out the map and looked at it carefully. He said in a deep voice, "The bonfire is the first safe point. You go to the castle first and let Feng Ling Er prepare." After keeping the map, Qin Feiyong sent the Wolf King into the castle. Then, he continued to chase after Wang Gang with a torch in his hand. At the same time, Wang Gang also sensed Qin Feiyong behind him. He turned his head to look, and a sneer appeared on his face. Qin Feiyong ran closer and stopped more than 10 meters away. He frowned and said, "You took the best red fire glaze elixir? You also know?" "Yes, you are their companion. It's not surprising that you know."
Yes, not long ago, I checked their Xueqi bag. In the woman's Xueqi bag, I found an elixir with elixir patterns. Looking carefully, it turned out to be the best red fire glaze elixir. I've heard about the best red fire glaze elixir. I heard that it was made by Zhang Haotian of Yen City. It can help people break through 2 small realms at once. I didn't believe it at first, but after I took it, I really broke through from a 1-star martial ancestor to a 3-star martial ancestor. What surprised me more was that the woman's Xueqi bag really had a panacea elixir. My arm has been fixed. Now it's my turn to hunt you down. Wang Gang laughed and rushed toward Qin Feiyang without any scruples. 4-star martial ancestor. Qin Feiyang was shocked. What he was worried about finally happened. A 4-star martial ancestor was not someone he and Wolf King could compete with. However, he and Wolf King could not, but it did not mean that others could not. Whoosh! Without hesitation, he went to the castle decisively. Wang Gang suddenly flew into a rage and shouted, "Come out if you have the guts. Don't hide like a coward." A dozen people in a safe place heard the roar and stood up one after another. They looked over in surprise. One of the burly men frowned and said, "It seems to be Wang Gang's voice." "It's indeed Wang Gang. Let's go and have a look. After all, they are old friends. We should help if we can." A dozen people immediately took out their weapons, held torches, and quickly ran toward where Wang Gang was. Inside the castle. "I'd like to see who will be the coward in the end." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. He turned his head and looked at Fengling. He handed Pale Snow over and said, "You heard what Wang Gang said before, right? Now it's your turn." Half an hour passed. Her injuries were more or less healed. She heard. She suddenly stood up and grabbed Chang Shui with cold light in her eyes. Qin Feiyang asked, "Do you need the best red fire glaze elixir?" "No need," Fengling said coldly. "Okay." Qin Feiyang grabbed her and appeared on the path. Dang! Seeing the two of them appear, Wang Gang immediately shouted and rushed toward them with murderous intent. "You don't have the ability." Barbarian Elephant Fist. Fengling's killing intent surged. Her seemingly delicate body went up to meet the attack without dodging. She clenched her jade-like hand and punched out. "Bitch, see how I'll play you to death later." Quicksand Palm. Wang Gang laughed lewdly as he waved his palm, sweeping up the rain that filled the sky as he slapped towards Fengling. The fist and the palm collided. The two of them retreated at the same time, with a trace of blood at the corner of their mouths. How is it possible? Wang Gang's face changed. Wasn't this bitch a 2-star martial grandmaster? How could her strength be on par with his? Right. It must be because the barbarian elephant fist was a perfect martial skill. His quicksand palm was only a superior martial skill, which made up for the gap in cultivation. If it wasn't for the fact that I was seriously injured from fighting with the fierce beasts. If it wasn't for you sneak attacking me. Do you think you can knock me out with your mediocre skills? You think you can steal my Xueqi bag? Bastard, you actually dared to take the supreme grade red fire-colored glass pill. Today, I'll dig out your eyeballs, chop off your hands, and feed the beasts. Fengling was furious. She grabbed Chang Shui with her left hand and punched with her right hand. 9 afterimages of her palms carried a terrifying pressure and rushed toward Wang Gang. The Martial Imperial Hall's exclusive perfect martial skill. Illusion Palm. You're a core disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall. Wang Gang's face turned pale. Because only core disciples were qualified to practice the perfect martial skill, Illusion Palm. The rest of the disciples could only practice the superior martial skill, Illusion Palm. In his heart, he had the intention to retreat. He punched with his palm and the palm wind was bitingly cold, but what he hit was only an afterimage. Fengling took the opportunity to slap him in the chest. With a crisp crack, the bones in Wang Gang's chest broke on the spot. Bang! At the same time, his body flew out horizontally and smashed into the ground a few meters away, creating a deep pit. Fengling chased after him. Her whole body was cold. Puff! Wang Gang spat out a mouthful of blood. Enduring the pain, he hurriedly climbed out of the deep pit and turned around to escape. But at this time, Fengling had already caught up, bent down and waved Chang Shui, instantly cutting the tendons of his feet. Bang! At this moment, Wang Gang fell to the ground like a dog eating shit and stuffed his mouth with mud.
At the same time, more than a dozen people in the safe area also rushed over. Chapter 159. Feng Er raised her head and raised her eyebrows, before she said with a cold smile, "What is it? Trying to be a busybody?" Qin Feiyong's eyes narrowed slightly, and he also walked to Feng Er's side, ready to go. The bulky man glanced at the two, before he glanced at Wang Gang and asked, "Brother Wang, what's going on here?" Wang Gang placed his hands on the ground and raised his head toward the group of people, before he begged, "Brother Meng, please help me kill these two little bastards. I'll definitely repay your kindness." "How dare you speak so rudely?" Feng Er became enraged and stomped her foot on Wang Gang's head. Wang Gang's entire face sank into the mud, causing him to have difficulty breathing. He struggled frantically and cried for help. Seeing this, the group of people immediately glared at each other. The bulky man yelled, "Let go of Brother Wang at once, or else none of you will live." Feng Er let out a disdainful laugh and said in a cold tone, "Come at me if you're not afraid of death." Stubborn. The bulky man became enraged and threw a punch in Feng Er's direction. Humph! Feng Er harumphed and waved her hand, causing 9 blurry figures to rush toward the bulky man like a storm. Illusionary palm. The bulky man's expression changed greatly, as he immediately backed off. The rest of the people were terrified too. This woman was a core disciple of the martial emperor palace. Feng Er said in a disdainful tone, "Aren't you being cocky? Why are you so scared now?" Wang Gang exerted force and raised his head, before he yelled, "Brother Meng, don't be afraid of them. Let's kill them here. Even the martial emperor palace won't be able to find out who did it." "You're really courting death." Feng Er's eyes flickered coldly, as if she had transformed into a female Azura. She waved her hand at lightning speed and dislocated Wang Gang's right hand. Wang Gang let out a cry of pain and yelled, "Brother Meng, they have top-tier crimson fire-color glass pills." "You're courting death." Feng Er waved the Chong Shui again, disabling Wang Gang's left hand. Blood spurted out from the wound like a fountain. Top-grade scarlet-colored glass pellet. The burly man and the others trembled and greed filled their eyes. At this moment, Qin Feiyong spread out his hands and said indifferently, "Let's see what this is before we make a move." More than 10 people looked at his palm. But there was nothing. Just when they thought that Qin Feiyong was bluffing, a transparent crystal appeared out of thin air. What? Image crystal. I would never be able to afford an image crystal stone in my entire life, but he has one. This means that his status in the Martial Emperor Hall is definitely not low. Their faces turned pale. If they dared to make a move, the other party would be able to inform the Martial Emperor Hall of what was happening here with a single thought. This time, he had really hit the wall. There are some things that you are not qualified to touch. Be honest and do your work. This is the way to survive. Qin Feiyong put away the image crystal stone, his expression as calm as ever. "Master is right. We will know our place. Please forgive us for offending you just now." More than 10 people immediately nodded and bowed, their faces full of flattery. They also hated Wang Gang in their hearts. How could they offend these two people? They actually wanted to drag them down with them. What evil intentions! The burly man took a step forward and cupped his hands. "Masters, this Wang Gang is despicable and shameless. Killing him will only dirty your hands. Why don't you let me do it for you?" Wang Gang said angrily, "Meng, what do you mean by this?" The burly man sneered. "What do I mean? With my understanding of you, I can imagine that you must have taken the initiative to provoke these two masters. People like you should be killed. Meng, I curse you to die a horrible death." Wang Gang roared in exasperation. "The person who is going to die today is you." Feng Er kicked Wang Gang's head. Wang Gang was kicked out, howling miserably. His head felt like it was about to split open, and he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. If it wasn't for Feng Er showing mercy, his head would have already split open. "I deserve to die. I have eyes but fail to recognize Mount Tai. I will kowtow to you, please give me a way out." He endured the pain and kept begging. "Scum like you deserve to die. Living is a waste of air." Feng Er walked up and Chong Shui descended like lightning, digging out Wang Gang's eyeballs. Immediately. Wang Gang let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered, rolling in the mud. His entire body was covered in blood, looking extremely terrifying. Qin Feiyang watched with trepidation. If a woman was angered, she was much more terrifying than a tiger. In the future, try not to provoke women if you have nothing to do. The burly man and the others also broke out in cold sweat. It was the first time they had seen such a ferocious woman. Feng Ling Er raised her head and glanced at them, instinctively taking a few steps back. They were afraid that the next target would be them. Feng Ling Er snorted from her nose, her face full of disdain. She walked in front of Wang Gang, took back the Chenkuan bag, grabbed Wang Gang's clothes, and threw him into the nearby forest. He lost his eyes, and his hamstrings were broken. His hands were also gone. His fate was destined to be tragic. Not long after, he was cut into pieces by a few fierce beasts that rushed over after hearing the news. He died in endless despair, and in the end, not even his bones were left. Those fierce beasts wanted to attack Qin Feiyang and the others again. But when they saw so many of them, they tactfully left. The burly man smiled and said, "Two lords, please follow us to a safe place." As he spoke, he waved to the others. Those people immediately retreated to the side and made way. Feng Ling Er nodded and looked down at the Chong Shui. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. She turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked hesitantly, "This? You see, we are so familiar with each other. This dagger, can you lend it to me to play with for a few days?" "In your dreams." Qin Feiyang snatched the Chong Shui, wiped the blood off, and put it into the Chenkuan bag. Feng Ling Er could only watch helplessly. "How stingy." She snorted coldly and walked toward the safety point without looking back. "This has nothing to do with being stingy. Chong Shui is the only thing my mother left for me. I can't let anyone take it." Qin Feiyang muttered and followed her silently. "Let's go." The burly man waved his hand, and more than a dozen people quickly followed. After dozens of breaths, the group arrived at the safe place. The so-called safe place was actually a piece of flat land about a dozen meters wide. There was a canopy on it, and there was a bonfire in the middle, which gave people some warmth. Although it was simple, at least it could shelter them from the rain. Above the bonfire, there was a piece of barbecued meat, but the surface was burnt, and there was a pungent smell of burnt meat. Feng Ling Er frowned and shouted, "It smells too bad. Take it away." "Yes, yes, yes." The burly man nodded repeatedly, grabbed the barbecued meat, and threw it directly into the forest next to him. Then he said, "My lords, why don't we go and get you some fresh meat? Just don't disturb me. You can do the rest," Qin Feiyang said lightly. Then he sat aside, took a supreme-grade healing pill, and began to recuperate. "What about you?" The burly man looked at Feng Ling Er again. Feng Ling Er glanced at Qin Feiyang. The more she looked, the more unhappy she was. "Humph." She snorted and sat aside. Then she said to the group of people, "Don't say I didn't warn you. If you disturb my meditation, I'll make sure you have to bear the consequences." Then she closed her eyes. The group of people felt bitter in their hearts. These two lords were really hard to please. "Wang Ku, Li Kue, come with me to hunt." The tall and sturdy man called for two men, who took a torch and walked along the path. After they were far away from the safe place, the burly man turned to the two of them and whispered, "Do you want supreme-grade crimson fire-colored glass pills?" "Brother Meng, what are you going to do?" The two of them were surprised. "What am I going to do?" "Of course, I'm going to find a chance to kill those two." The burly man's eyes flashed with madness. "Brother Meng, are you crazy? They are the core disciples of the Martial Imperial Hall, and they have the image crystal. If we're not careful, we'll be doomed." Wang Ku and Li Kue whispered. "What are you afraid of? Aren't they meditating now? When they let down their guard at midnight, we'll sneak attack them. At that time, they won't have a chance to send a message to the Martial Imperial Hall. As long as we can get the supreme-grade crimson fire-colored glass pill, not only can I become a 6-star martial ancestor, but you can also become a 5-star martial ancestor. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have to think carefully." The burly man instigated. "What if they only have one supreme-grade crimson fire-colored glass pill? How are we going to split it?" Wang Ku frowned. "That's easy. We'll take it to the Precious Treasure Pavilion and auction it. From what I know,
the supreme-grade crimson fire-colored glass pill is sold for more than 4 million gold coins in Yen City.
At that time, each of us will get more than 1 million gold coins.
The burly man said with a smile, but there was a trace of coldness in his eyes.
The two of them trembled violently. More than 1 million gold coins. They had never seen so many gold coins in their lives.
The burly man urged, "Hurry up and make a decision.
If you don't do it, I'll find someone else." "We'll do it,"
the two of them said hurriedly. The burly man smiled and said, "I knew you would agree.
Wait for my signal and act according to the situation." The two of them nodded.
Then, the three of them killed a ferocious beast casually and returned to the safe place. Qin Feiyong opened his eyes a little and watched the three of them.
They knew it was dangerous outside, but they still took the two of them to hunt. Wasn't it too abnormal?
But after observing for a while, he didn't see anything strange about the three of them.
"Am I thinking too much?"
Qin Feiyong murmured and was about to close his eyes.
However, at this time,
the burly man turned his head and glanced at him and Feng Ling Er. Seeing that both of them had closed their eyes, a cold smile appeared on his face.
But it disappeared immediately. But he didn't expect that this abnormality was clearly caught by Qin Feiyong. He also didn't expect that Qin Feiyong was a very cautious person. "There's really something wrong," Qin Feiyong thought to himself. After pondering for a moment, he opened his eyes, got up and walked to Feng Ling Er.
Under the puzzled gaze of the burly man and others, he grabbed Feng Ling Er and suddenly disappeared without a trace.
Chapter 160. Qin Feiyong. What are you doing? Feng Ling Er was also a little confused by Qin Feiyong's sudden action. Shoo! Qin Feiyong made a shushing gesture. Outside.
The burly man and the others looked around in surprise.
Where were they? How could they disappear into thin air? Could it be that they could teleport?
Li Kuei said, "Brother Meng, do you know where they went?"
The burly man shook his head.
Wang Ke frowned and said, "Did he notice our motive?"
"Impossible. After we came back, we didn't show any flaws."
The burly man shook his head decisively, his expression uncertain.
Meng, what motive? What are you talking about?"
The others looked at the three of them in confusion.
"Nothing," Meng said irritably, sitting next to the bonfire.
Under the light of the fire, his face was full of hostility.
"In the castle. What motive?" Feng Ling Er, Ling Yunfei, and Wolf King also looked at Qin Feiyong in confusion. "How would I know? Anyway, it can't be anything good." Qin Feiyong sneered.
He didn't dare to say about the others.
But Meng, Wang Ku, and Li Kuei were definitely suspicious. Feng Ling Er said, "Do you want me to go out and kill them?" "No need. There are still 2 danger points before we reach the Desert of Death. We might as well make use of them. Besides, their strength is not bad. With your current ability, it won't be easy to kill them all." As soon as Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he found that Feng Ling Er's expression was a little strange. He said helplessly, "Don't misunderstand. It's not that I don't have confidence in you. I just don't want you to get hurt." "Oh, you still care about me?" Feng Ling Er didn't dare to be surprised. "Forget it." Qin Feiyong's face twitched. He walked to the iron box and continued to copy the Huan formula. Feng Ling Er asked, "Wolf Cub, what did Qin Feiyong write? What's the point of doing that?" "Nonsense. Would he do something meaningless?"
Wolf King glared at her and continued to nap on the ground.
Feng Ling Er pinched its ear and asked curiously, "Then tell me what's the point?"
Wolf King said angrily, with my bad temper, "Do you believe that I won't bite you?"
"Then bite me."
Feng Ling Er stared at it unkindly.
"A good wolf doesn't fight with a woman." Wolf King's eyes were full of disdain as he said indifferently, "Let me put it this way. If he didn't write that thing, his cultivation level would have long surpassed yours." Feng Ling Er was dumbfounded. In front of him, "Your talent is only a little better than trash." Wolf King said contemptuously, "How dare you compare me to trash? Wolf Cub, you really need to be taught a lesson." Feng Ling Er scowled and pinched hard with her jade-like hand.
One of Wolf King's ears was suddenly deformed and he grimaced in pain.
"Brother Wolf needs to be taught a lesson. What do you want? Bite my balls if you have the guts."
Wolf King roared. Shameless. Dirty. Dirty. Fengling Air was so angry that her teeth itched. Seeing the girl and the wolf fighting fiercely, Ling Yunfei shook his head helplessly. However, he firmly believed in Wolf King's words. Qin Feiyang's martial arts talent was indeed much better than Fengling Air's. It could even be said that in the entire county of Yan, no one could be his match. That night, Fengling Air made a breakthrough. She was thick-skinned and asked Qin Feiyang for a supreme-grade red fire glaze elixir. She became a 5-star martial grandmaster. And Qin Feiyang only had 6 supreme-grade red fire glaze elixirs left. The next morning, not only did the rain not stop, but it also became heavier. Meng Ming and the others were ready to go. Qin Feiyang also withdrew his arm and closed the iron book. He looked at Fengling Air and said, "Just pretend that you don't know anything. Fengling Air, don't expose your current strength too early." "I know what to do." Fengling Air rolled her eyes as if she was blaming him for being a busybody. Ling Yunfei shrugged and said with a smile, "We don't know anything." Qin Feiyang smiled and did not talk nonsense with Fengling Air. He led the two to the safe place. They appeared out of thin air again? Meng Ming and the others were about to set off. When they saw the 3 of them, their eyes almost popped out. Ghosts were nothing more than this. Cough. Wang Ke coughed and pulled Meng Ming's sleeve. Meng Ming suddenly came back to his senses. He quickly walked to the 3 of them and bowed. He looked at Ling Yunfei in confusion and asked, "Lords, who is this?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "He is also a core disciple of the Martial Imperial Palace." "Greetings, Lord." The group immediately bowed. Ling Yunfei nodded faintly. Meng Ming smiled flatteringly and said, "Lords, you see that danger is everywhere. Why don't we travel together so that we can take care of each other?" Qin Feiyang thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Meng Ming was overjoyed and asked, "When shall we set off?" Qin Feiyang looked at the sky and saw layers of dark clouds. He did not know when the rain would stop, so he might as well set off now. Therefore, the group of people rushed through the rain. There were 5 people clearing the way in front, 5 at the back, and 3 at the left and right. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 walking in the middle had nothing to do. Meng Ming killed a beast with a slash. He looked back at Qin Feiyang and asked with a smile, "Lord, where did you go last night? We were worried to death when we saw you suddenly disappear." "Thank you for your concern." Qin Feiyang smiled and said. He avoided Meng Ming's question. Meng Ming turned his head and frowned. He asked without looking back, "Lords, is this your first time in the desert of death?" Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then it's easy." Meng Ming sneered inwardly and shouted, "All of you, stay alert. Let's try to reach the second safe point before it gets dark." "Okay." Wang Ku and the others shouted. The path during the day was much safer. It took a long time to encounter a beast blocking the way. The strength of the people present was not bad, so they could easily deal with it. When it was almost evening, Meng Ming, who was walking in front, suddenly raised his hand and shouted, "Everyone stop!" "What's wrong?" someone asked. "Nothing, I'm just thirsty and want to drink some water." Meng Ming took out a water bag and drank a mouthful. He turned to look at the others and smiled. "Does anyone want a drink?" However, as he spoke, he secretly winked at Wang Ku and Li Kuei. The 2 of them nodded without leaving a trace. "Brother Meng, thank you. It's raining. We've drunk enough rain. How can we be thirsty? Let's continue our journey." The others laughed. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. "That's right. We've drunk enough rain. How can Meng Ming be thirsty? Something's wrong." He raised his head and looked at the path ahead. There was still a dense jungle on both sides of the path. But it was surprisingly quiet. Along the way, although there were few ferocious beasts, the roar of beasts and the sound of insects never stopped in the jungle. But here, not to mention the roar of beasts, there was not even the sound of insects. It could even be described as dead silence. He carefully observed the terrain around him and suddenly realized that this was the second danger point. Since it was a dangerous point, why didn't Meng Ming say it? Meng Ming had already put away the water bag and smiled. "Everyone, there's still an hour's journey to the safe point. We should be able to reach it before dark. Let's go." The group continued to set off. However, Meng Ming, Wang Ku, and Li Kuei had unknowingly retreated to the middle of the crowd. The others also noticed it, but they didn't suspect anything. But Qin Feiyong knew in his heart. He pulled Ling Yunfei's sleeve. Ling Yunfei understood and used the same method to remind Feng Ling Air next to him. The dangerous point was close at hand. Meng Ming and the other two subconsciously put their hands on the Chenkuan bag at their waist. Finally, the group entered the dangerous point. Whoosh! Immediately, streaks of blood-red light shot out from the bushes, covering a large area. At first glance, it looked like a sea of blood, incomparably terrifying. What the hell is that? Everyone turned pale with fright. But even Qin Feiyong, who had long been prepared, couldn't help but turn pale when he saw the blood-red flowing light clearly. This is blood leech. He roared loudly. Blood leech. Hearing this name, everyone's face instantly turned pale. There was no desire to fight at all, only despair and helplessness. It was also at this moment Meng Ming and the other two revealed their killing intent. They took out a dagger from their Chenkuan bag and directly pounced on Qin Feiyong and the other two. Fox's tail has finally come out? Qin Feiyong sneered. The big hand hidden in the sleeve stretched out like lightning. Chang Shui was invincible. The 3 daggers were broken on the spot. At the same time, Feng Ling Air threw out 3 palms in a row. True Qi rolled as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. Puff! Meng Ming and the other two spat out a mouthful of blood. Their chests instantly caved in. Immediately after, Qin Feiyong and the other two reached out with their big hands. Each of them grabbed one person and used them as a meat shield. They rushed forward violently. The swarm of blood leech all gathered on Meng Ming and the other two and crazily drilled into their bodies. The others were also drowned by the blood leech. Screams could be heard incessantly. Qin Feiyong and the other two rushed out without looking back. Then, they threw Meng Ming and the other two aside and ran more than 10 meters away. Only then did they turn around and look at Meng Ming and the others. Those blood leech were only the size of a thumb. They were blood-red and extremely disgusting. Even with Feng Ling Air's fearless personality, when she saw those blood leech, her beautiful face turned pale. My 3 lords, please save us. Ah, it hurts. They drilled into my body and are sucking my blood. Meng Ming and the other two cried out in pain as they rolled on the ground. Their bodies were covered with blood leech. They could not be swatted away or shaken off. Qin Feiyong sneered. You schemed to kill us and now you want us to save you. Do you think we are stupid? What? They actually noticed it. Meng Ming's expression changed abruptly. He hurriedly said, My lord, what are you saying? We never had such thoughts. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, Since you didn't have such thoughts, why didn't you tell us that this is the second danger point? How did you know? Isn't this your first time here? Meng Ming exclaimed in disbelief.